call the meeting to order, and can we start by saying Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we do roll call, please?
Commissioner Hammond?
Here.
Commissioner Abraham?
Here.
Commissioner Robinson or
Here.
Vice Chair Robinson?
Here.
Chair Hillman? Commissioner Nordmo?
Present.
And Secretary Clark.
Here, present.
And I would ask, or I would imagine, we are excusing the absence for Commissioner Hillman.
Yes, he did make me aware that he was not going to be able to make it tonight.
Perfect.
I'll make a motion to excuse Commissioner Hillman.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And it's so moved. Thank you. The approval of the agenda from the last meeting. Were there any changes or any questions or?
That's for this meeting.
Oh, sorry. I might need to open the agenda to make sure I have everything I need, right? Thanks. I'm a newbie, sorry you guys. And that would be, okay.
You should this because I didn't print mine. Sneak it to you.
Yeah, I hadn't printed it off for this meeting either. I've got the master plan that Austin forwarded. And let's see. Give me a moment. I'm sorry, you guys, let me. I can see better and move faster on my laptop.
Joe, while you're getting prepared, I'll let everyone know that we did have James Scussel resign a couple months ago, and last night the City Council did appoint a new member. They're not able to make it tonight, but they should be joining us in our April meeting.
Yes, they did, and I was watching, and I can't remember the gentleman's name. I wrote it
Rice.
down. Rice. Yeah. And so we look forward to him joining and being able to lend support to this committee as we do the work, the good work for Lathrup Village. I'm sorry, Austin, I'm looking
No
for
worries.
your email here, because you always have my connect to the commission meeting.
Yeah, I can email you, so it's right at the top of your.
And I'm almost there. Sorry. I was caught off guard today. I usually like to sit next to Tim and just, ride the wave.
No, but we're going to also talk about, we're a month into Recast City, working with Alana Pruce and her consulting firm. It's been very exciting. We've learned a lot so far, and we've already gotten some of the steps done that we are working towards when it comes to bringing maker spaces and small-scale production to our DDA district and to our community. It is a great opportunity, and Tom and I are really excited. We have a great team with us, And we got members from Oakland Thrive, the Lathrup Village Chamber of Commerce, and even beyond that, besides just members of our cohort, there's other members of the community who have been providing input, providing guidance, and we've started reaching out to the property owners. And we had a great conversation with one of them recently who, at first, it takes a second to get your head wrapped around this concept. And Alana came up with it while she was with the Environmental Protection Agency as their chief of staff of the Smart Growth Program. And in addition to that, recently I just read a great paper that an economist wrote about how states, and especially Michigan, instead of taking significant amount of public funding and giving it to large employers to attract them to the state to bring jobs that unfortunately don't usually materialize as expected, is to take that money and provide it to local governments and county governments to provide an environment and an ecosystem for entrepreneurs and investors to build their own environment to have production and also to have jobs, because small employers are the backbone of our economy, and they employ
Absolutely.
the most of our citizens and residents. So we're really excited about this, and I think it's something that is going to really kick off in Southeast Michigan. Tom's been really engaged with Project Diamond, Oakland County's program to bring 3D printing as part of our supply chain here in Michigan. And I think they're going to have great success with it. They're doing some amazing work.
Nice. I think I'm ready.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that
Absolutely.
update, and I think I'm ready. And I do call for a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's session.
So moved.
Second.
So
It's been moved and
the second
seconded.
was Abraham, okay, thank you.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we have that third item off the agenda. And approval of the meeting minutes from last week's meeting. That's correct, right?
Last month, yeah.
Or last month's meeting.
I
Do we
move
have any-
adoption of the planning commission minutes for Tuesday, February 17.
Support.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, this is gonna go fast. Presentations, Recast City Cohort.
Thank you. So Tom and I are going to give a quick overview of what the program is and where we're at right now. It is a 10-month program, so we are just at the beginning. We're at the very beginning stage, and we're excited. We're working with 5 other communities in Southeast Michigan who all face different challenges that they need to overcome in their communities, but also face similar challenges. And it's a resource and network that we're going to be able to work alongside with and also in the future. So we're making great connections with these communities, and we're also getting fantastic feedback and guidance from Alana. And so in the spirit of transparency, we want to share what we're learning through Recast Cohort, because it's not just about providing technical assistance and developing the ecosystem in a downtown based around small-scale production. It's also providing us workshops that we're getting information from. So the weeks that we are meeting with the cohort, we meet for a couple hours on Zoom, and then those off weeks, we meet with our own team. So our team here in Lathrup Village. We want to showcase our intentions and thought process, which we're, on the working title, we're calling it the Maker's Mile. And we're really excited that we actually heard somebody at a public meeting refer to it already as the Maker's Mile. So we're starting to click in the zeitgeist. We want to elicit discussion, feedback from residents, business, and property owners and prospective investors in our DDA district. So this is a process that will work alongside in tandem with the master plan process. And a lot of the information we gain from the Recast project will go into the master plan process. And talking with the team at Giffords, a lot of the information we gain from the master plan process will feed into the Recast city process. And I think there's been a lot of discussion about making decisions after the master plan is completed. And they are running parallel and have a similar timeline, but this was an opportunity that we didn't get to pick the timeline. It was when it was, and we had to strike when the iron's hot, so we took this opportunity. So it all started with Main Street Oakland County providing us here in the DDA with news that the Recast Cohort opportunity was available. So Recast City is a consulting firm based off of the concepts in Alana Preuss's book called Recast City. And they pick a cohort from across the country, 5 to 6 communities, to work with for 10 months on an annual basis. This go around, the Michigan Municipal League, in coordination with the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation, reached out and offered the program at no cost to communities in Southeast Michigan. So it's called the Recast Leaders Cohort, and it's based off her books called Recast Your City, How to Save Your Downtown and with Small Scale Manufacturing. It's production that anything that can be made, baked, produced on site, packaged, and is sold in a retail front. So that's that downtown spirit, is that it's something that is sold in retail. So one of the examples she talked about, and we've been learning about, is in Knoxville, Tennessee. They have a fantastic environment for those who want to take maybe it's a hobby or a side hustle and turn it into a full-on opportunity for their, not just their economic growth, but their community's economic growth.
Did you say Knoxville?
Yep.
I'll be
Knoxville.
there next week, so where?
Oh, really?
Where in Knoxville?
I'll provide that information to you, which is funny because Jill is actually going through Knoxville as well. So we got 2 people with the Planning Commission coming back to bring their experience there. But when they started working with that city, there was a business owner they made glass, started with beer glasses, and it turned into different glass objects. And people were not engaging with that business. It was kind of off behind the main street. So they came in and they were talking to residents, and they're like, we find it so interesting that they're blowing glass here. They're making glass products. And they said, put in a retail front and open up a window. Put a window to the production floor. And they did, and it's been a hit. So you'll have to check it out when you're down there, Dennis, and give us that feedback. And that goes back to a very crucial planning concept, that if you put windows in your downtown, in your main street, and you show what's going on inside your businesses, people will maybe get out of their cars and go inside as well. And they'll frequent it and become a frequent customer. So the intent is to help communities activate vacant storefronts, support small-scale production, make your businesses, and focus on practical, implementable economic development strategies. Full program cost is covered by the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation, which typically would be about over $20,000. So we get this at no cost. And we even had access to other consultants. When one of my early conversations with Alana, I told her about how we're looking at our parking requirements and how we're looking to revamp them. She goes, oh yeah, I have a great consultant who works with communities nationwide, and for no cost we can work with them. So these 10 months, Tom and I are going to run with it and take any opportunity we can. So nationwide data shows that retail environments are changing. People's shopping habits are changing, and that's only sped up since the COVID lockdowns. People are not going to their neighborhood stores as they once did. They're not going shopping for clothes like they once did there. And also, people are looking for more experiences. They want an experience when they go shopping, or something unique that they can't get on Amazon or online. So, and it also goes to office space. We have a district that's only zoned for office. And we are next door to one of Southeast Michigan's greatest hubs for Class A office space. And property owners are like, I don't want to invest the amount of money I need to compete with them, because the demand's just not there anymore. Because of not just the way we shop, but the way we work. So we got to look for other opportunities and give the property owners more opportunities to work with the buildings they have and the space they have. So communities are seeking flexible mixed-use business districts, and that's been a conversation since I joined the city about providing more opportunities in the different zoning districts. And that part is actually the process is straightforward. It's just getting the data and the feedback and the engagement with residents and business owners, because this isn't just about the commercial district, it's also about the residents. Because when we start looking at potential people to fill these maker spaces, we want to turn to the residents first. And Tom has a great anecdote he's going to bring up about somebody who was a vendor at the music festival last year. And they do a product in their home, and they might be looking to go bigger. So there are other people in our communities
Right.
who are doing that type of work. And supporting local entrepreneurs, and also providing them with the financial resources. Because one of the most difficult things is getting microloans. So we've already started looking at financial institutions. We met with the Small Business Administration last week about their opportunities, and also the different financial institutions in our area that we can work with. So the work currently underway is identifying economic barriers for entrepreneurs in our community, evaluating opportunities within our business corridor, exploring zoning and policy considerations that could be adapted, changed, or added to, and developing goals for activating commercial spaces. So that also goes to placemaking, not just what's going on inside the buildings, but an environment where people want to live, people want to visit, people want to work, people want to invest. Preparing for the next cohort workshop. So every week, if we're not meeting with the cohort, we're working on a project, and we're getting into the part where we're done. We're getting to about the last week where we'll be talking about more of what we want to see and start engaging with the actual partners and stakeholders in our city and in our region. So goals for Lathrup Village: strengthening the business corridor, activate vacant or underutilized commercial space, support entrepreneurs and small businesses, explore zoning flexibility for small-scale production, exchange new types of business activity. So that's looking beyond what we currently have and looking at what we could have, and providing them with the ease of site development process, and also providing them with a development guide that's straightforward. They should know what to expect from us, and we should let them know what we expect from them, so that we can have a easy development process, as easy as possible, with as many of the barriers, at least having a strategy. One of the things we do on a regular basis with developers is having a pre-site development meeting. So before the development process even begins, we sit down and we talk with them, we provide resources, and we also talk with them about the steps they'll need to go through to get their business open or their property built. So now I'll hand it over to Tom, and he's going to talk about small-scale production.
So, a little bit about small-scale production and then what our hopes are with this Maker's Mile that we want going forward. Small-scale production, very simply as defined by Ms. Prowse in her book, is a community of businesses that produce some form of tangible good. Think anything woodworking, jewelry making, leatherworking, 3D printed goods, hair or skincare products, biotech, hardware, the list goes on and on. These businesses must be able to replicate their products in-house. They have to make them in the store and sell them in the store. They can also ship them as well. So there are greater opportunities for them, but the key is produced in-house. A makerspace or a maker business, generally they're small-scale businesses. They produce goods locally. They get all their material locally, so they're always producing and being a part of the local economy. They often combine production with showroom retail. Like Austin mentioned, there was a store in Knoxville that once they brought in that big window, people started coming in more. Then they had a showroom, and then they took off. You see a lot of those with these maker spaces and maker-related businesses. They encourage entrepreneurship and local innovation, and often they activate underused storefronts, and that's the big key that we're going for. We want to take these storefronts that have not seen any kind of action in them for years now, and we want them to be used in some capacity. So the Maker's Mile is penned off of the Miracle Mile in Chicago, or St. Clair Shores' Nautical Mile. This is our arbitrary mile-long design. I say arbitrary because, let's be honest, it's going to be way longer than a mile. But the Maker's 2 Mile just doesn't sound as good, let's be honest. This is going to open a pathway for already existing businesses as well to utilize small-scale manufacturing. along with permitting new businesses to open within the district. We have seen 3 businesses already existing partner with Project Diamond to get 3D printers themselves. So this is kicking off with already existing businesses. And instead of rezoning individual nodes or parcels per project request, we do intend to add these use types to our zoning designations. Initially, we were thinking that an overlay district was going to have to be placed for all these districts. After speaking with Gibbles Webster last week, we determined that is not going to be the case. We can just add them as uses. So already this process is evolving as we go.
So,
Maker-
I'm sorry.
Yes.
It was me. So basically what you're saying is it doesn't have to be an either or, it can be a and.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully that's the goal, because that's gonna make things a lot easier. The Maker's Mile is an umbrella identity more than anything else. It's gonna be an overarching theme across the entire business district. It's not gonna be just one block, it's going to be handling a corridor-based initiative applied strategically across the commercial areas. The reason being is that we don't have just a downtown, a traditional downtown. We have corridors, that's a downtown. So we are taking a new approach to this as a DDA. We're kind of looking at it as we would a corridor improvement authority rather than a downtown development authority. Under this umbrella are corridor-based creative production networks activated through targeted nodes. Again, we're targeting those empty and vacant parcels. How this program is going to succeed, very simply, it's going to succeed through community partnerships and organizations like Oakland Thrive, the Chamber of Commerce, Project Diamond, who has been massively instrumental in helping us kick this off, Main Street Oakland County, who gave us the information to begin with, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, our financial institutions like Chase Bank and Michigan First Credit Union, and like Austin mentioned, Lathrup residents. This is going to be starting with people who are hobbyists. I'm sure Lauren can talk a little bit more about some of the vendors that we had at the music festival, but one of the vendors that we had, actually 2 of the vendors that we had, were Lathrup residents who did, one of them did jewelry making, the other one made soaps and help me out, lotions.
Lotions.
Thank you. They made lotions in-house, in their own basement, and we gave them a vendor opportunity, and they did pretty well. So getting them out of the basement, stopping making a mess in the basement, and getting them into a storefront is a massive boon for them and the community. So it's going to be not just a one thing that's going to make this succeed, it's multiple at once. And finally, this is for all of you. This presentation was a cursory view at what we're doing and our hopes for all of this. This plan is not final. No plan that we're making is final. We just have an idea, it's all preliminary. What we're hoping, and even this presentation had massive changes to it coming in. I was gonna take 4 or 5 pages just to talk about what an overlay district is to give you guys some ideas, and now we don't need to talk about that anymore, so yay. Because of that, I do have some questions for you all. You do not have to answer them today. You don't have to have an idea of what we're talking about. Next month, we're gonna have a far deeper presentation for you to give you a better idea of what the plan is. But as a cursory view, we just wanna know, what opportunities do you see for small scale production locally? Are there zoning considerations we should explore that we're not considering? Because that's definitely possible. How can we, as both city staff and us as a board, support entrepreneurs in the corridor, and what concerns should be addressed early in the process? Of course, we will like this to spur discussion between our community members and our board, as well as ourselves. We will take and answer questions at any time, whenever, wherever. So if you have any today, we'll love to take them and answer them. And of course, to our residents in-house and anyone who is watching elsewhere, we'll take your questions as well. So pass it off to you guys and see if you have anything for us.
I had a suggestion relative to the third question, how can we support entrepreneurs in the corridor? There are obviously already entrepreneurs operating
Yes.
in the city, so what's the plan for outreach to them to find out what do they need, but what could they get what would they request from a program like this?
That is one of the steps in this 10-month process, is engagement with the business owners, the property owners, and different stakeholders who may want to invest in our district. So that is information that we will be gathering.
So what's the plan?
So
May I?
go for it.
So I've already had conversations. There's a reason why we brought in our Chamber of Commerce to be on our team, and it's because if we're going to be doing this for our businesses, we need to have someone who's got more of a hand in the pot for our businesses to be able to, get us back that information. He's going to be the one, our Chamber of Commerce is going to be the ones who get us that information, what they need, when they need it, how they can use it. And it's also why we're conversing with our local, Michigan First and Chase Bank, and why we went out to talk to the SBA. If we can get that money flowing to the businesses and get them those resources, that's how we can make them succeed. And that's already feedback that we've gotten so far, is that, what the Chamber of Commerce has told us that the businesses have needed.
So I'll just suggest that that's a great start.
Yes.
But it will target the audience that's already engaged with the Chamber of Commerce or the banks. And there are going to be a lot more businesses, there are already a lot more businesses in the city that are not necessarily directly connected to either of those entities. I'm thinking about, we had a site plan review probably about a year ago or within the last year for a request for a approval for a change in use relative to a business that was wrapping objects, right? Mugs, bowls, right?
Yes.
You remember that
Yes,
business?
I do
that came
remember
in?
that.
Yeah, so I, as far as I know, they're not connected to the Chamber of Commerce, and I assume they're probably such a small business, not connected to the bank. So it's just thinking about how do we engage businesses like that are entrepreneurial and already operating in the city and aren't necessarily directly connected to a formal city-connected organization.
And one of the reasons we picked our team members and our cohort members as we did, members from the Chamber, members from Oakland Thrive, is that they're feet on the ground people. They literally walk the block step by step, going into the businesses, engaging with them, providing them information on how they can engage with us. So it will be both in person, it'll be town halls, and it'll be surveys as well.
That's great, yeah, it's a terrific plan. Like, that's absolutely, first of all, it's easy, we already have that connection, that conduit. So for sure, take advantage of it. I'm just trying to plant a seed
Yeah.
that we can go beyond that to some of these other businesses as
And
well.
we'll also be engaging with the new committee on engagement to figure out ways we can connect with business owners and residents.
To give you an idea, a lot of cities who already have programs like this, the way that they do it, they mostly post their stuff online, they have flyers that they give out. We do want to take more of a boots on the ground approach, which is why we have Tracy Williams, part of Oakland Thrive, on board. She is a lot more involved in the business community than we are, regrettably so. We do want to be more involved, but unfortunately, we do have to be here very
Yeah,
often. So,
you guys have jobs here, yeah.
yeah, so there are plans in place that we are forming, and yeah.
And I would say to those small entrepreneurs who are in the basements and in their kitchens, at their dining room tables and such, extend an invitation vis-a-vis, the newsletter. Hey, come see us. We'd like to hear about what it is that you're doing and how we can help you grow, that type of thing. And I'm sure you'd have a lot of people, if they're serious enough and they want to do that, then they will. If they want to turn it from a hobby to a business, then they would engage. So.
And also, we ask that anybody who wants to know more information about the process that we're going through or how they can be involved as an investor or be one of the people who actually occupy one of these spaces, please reach out to us. Our information's on the website, because I'll tell you that we've had some pretty some site plans that come through in the last couple of years that have really caused a lot of people to want to know more, but we've only gotten a couple phone calls and only a couple emails. So please, our door is open. You can even show up in City Hall and we'll come down and talk to you. So please spread the word.
Commissioners?
I suggest you check the spelling of the words illicit and illicit You used it wrong twice, and it suggests you're going for the sex business.
That's not what we're going for in our district. No.
Not at all.
One concern that I have that I think should be in your thoughts while you're going through this process is that, you know, we have 100-foot commercial lot depths here. So oftentimes with production, even small scale production, you have concerns with sound, odor, materials, disposal of materials. And, with good reason, we don't have an industrial or even a light industrial district in this
Correct.
community, and that's large part because of the proximity to the residential district. We
And-
have, over the years, had various businesses, and we still have some today, that produce odors or noises that are objectionable to the residents. So I think it's just something to keep in mind, especially, you mentioned amending the zoning ordinances to allow for these types of businesses. I think at a minimum, we would want to make them special land uses so that this body and the city council still has some control and input
And-
over.
Believe it or
And
not,
that's
this is
been our-
actually something that's addressed in the book too.
Yeah, and it's on our radar that
Yeah.
we
I
will
just wanna
have.
bring it up. I mean,
Yeah,
'cause,
no, it's a great one
You
because
don't want to get too far, and then
No,
everyone's like, wait
absolutely.
a minute, you're
No,
putting a woodworking shop next to my house? You know?
no, and it's not going to be welding or
Yeah,
those
just,
type
I
of
mean, just
businesses.
those are things I think
But-
that going through it should,
When it comes to amending the zoning ordinance, there'll be criteria, and I agree, it should be a special land use that comes to the planning commission and through the site plan review process. Have those criteria evaluated with the
and
proposed
that
site
might,
plan.
that might require some additional, ordinance restrictions, or preventative measures for,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, for odor and things of that nature.
Yeah, and I think I asked once before, it might have been this, or maybe it was another plan that you all were presenting. Is this a Six Sigma lean?
Not that I'm aware of, but I wouldn't be surprised. Alana Pruss is she's a very ambitious person, and she was the chief of staff of the Smart Growth Program, so she's all about efficiency.
Well, I phrased that wrong. It should be.
Okay.
Meaning, if you guys turn this into a Six Sigma lean type of project, then that would also build a plan for future states. So,
No, that's a great idea.
Just to interject, like, my experience with Six Sigma projects is through, Fortune 500 corporations. Sometimes these Six Sigma projects tend to become a lot of work, right? And at least inside of a Fortune 500 company, because you have dozens of people working on these things. So we want to maybe encourage project management best practices without
Absolutely.
requiring project management gates, right?
understood, and I agree. Yeah. Anyone else have anything else?
I have a little difficulty reconciling just a physical thing here. Little shops that you walk by, I would see them congregating in sort of like a courtyard. But I see a lot of buildings with huge parking spaces out in front. And there may be parts of this area that could be adaptable to your plan very easily, and other parts that would require rethinking our parking requirements and the layout of the buildings in regard to parking to make your concept work.
Well, the concept's not to make it more walkable like a main street you might see in Berkeley or Royal Oak. That is just, with our environment, that's just not feasible. We're not going to get there. But the concept is to have it open where people can go in and purchase products on site. It's not just a closed-off building that has no public-facing engagement.
The goal of that window that we mentioned, if feasible in a property, which is, you're right, it's not going to be feasible in every property, but the goal is precisely that, to generate some metric of interest, get people inside. Because it works, you go up to Frankenmuth, and I know this is not a good example because they have a very walkable downtown, but you go up to Frankenmuth and all their windows are huge storefront windows, and that generates interest that you get inside. It's things like that. It's not going to work in every place, admittedly, but if it can work in one property, it will in that property.
So this is like, more like a weaving where there are many different kinds of strands, and this is one strand of development, right?
Correct. On the nose.
Any other discussion? Thank you.
Thank you. Again, think on this more. We will be bringing back a more in-depth presentation next month. So
Looking forward to it. Thank you. So now we're going to open the floor for public comment. And public comments are with respect to the items that are on the agenda for this
This
evening.
section, there is no, in this body, we only have one public comment section, so the public is free to address anything they
Okay.
wish.
Thank you. And is it 2 minutes or 3 minutes?
3 minutes.
You get a whole extra minute. 3 minutes for public comment. If you have public comment, please make your way.
Lauren Barris, Golden Gate. I just wanted to say that the whole Maker's Mile is really exciting. I owned a business for almost 17 years, a boutique, and I know that if you have a big window in the front, people are more interested in seeing what's going on. That could really be a plus. The idea of making something and being able to produce it and sell it there is really exciting too. And I have a lot more vendors who might be interested in this that I really have to reach out to. I've just been in the planning stages and haven't done that. But yeah, I just wanted to put my opinion on that I think is a really great idea, especially to use up some of that empty space that we have on Southfield Road and pretty it up a little bit. I like that idea too.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Jonathan Terra, California Drive. On the way in here, I spoke briefly to Commissioner Nordmo. I wanted to thank him for putting himself out there and making some comments on the surveys, many of which resonated with me. But one in particular is something I've been wondering about, and he seems to have wondered about the same thing. And I'm going to read his comment. The current downtown development plan creates confusion around the status of current residential housing within the area. And what I'm referring to specifically, and if you look at the map up here, but I have it here, you notice this purple area here, if everybody can see this. This is the downtown, what do we actually
The
call
village
that?
center.
Village
yeah.
Center District or
yeah.
just Village Center?
It's the village center zoning.
Okay,
district.
Village Center zoning area. It includes the inner ring of California Drive, as well as the inner ring of Stanford Court. This is so out of date. I don't think anybody anticipates commercial development, or mixed-use development in these areas. I understand from a previous meeting that the housing, which is 30-plus single-family homes in this area, are non-conforming. I live across the street from that, so I live on the other side of California Drive, but obviously it concerns me. The people who live in that housing, I don't know if they're aware of that status. Maybe some of them are real estate developers who hope to make a lot of money someday or hoped to make a lot of money someday, as apparently some did in the past when Michigan first expanded. I guess some properties went for some pretty good prices, and we lost some historic, I don't know how historic that housing was up there, but we lost some housing. So that's something that I hope this body can, get. We're doing a master plan. If this isn't what we want and it doesn't sound, there are different ideas on what we do want, But this doesn't sound like it's something that anybody wants right now. You know, it was a great idea of a village center that, you know, was put forth in the 1920s, but we tried and tried and tried, and it's just never happened. So what we're left with is developing the strip, or the strips, you know, which seems more realistic.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comment? What I will say behind Jonathan's comment is, for those that are here, for those that are online and watching, please make sure you go to the website and complete the survey so that you can give your input and express your concern, or just provide ideas as to how you envision Lathrup, which is your city, moving forward. So please make sure you do that. Next on the agenda, do we have any old business or tabled items? Okay, seeing none, hearing none. New business. In section 8, capital improvement plan, the CIP 2025 to 2030.
Thank you, Joe. As part of our commitment to long-term infrastructure planning and fiscal responsibility, the Planning Commission is set to review and consider the adoption of the City of Lathrup Village's 2026 to 2031 capital improvement plan. This document serves as a strategic guide for identifying and prioritizing major capital projects over the coming years. The capital improvement plan outlines key improvements across various program areas, including roads, water, sewer, public safety, parks and recreation, and downtown development. Notably includes updates as administrative facilities and technology upgrades, Department of Public Services equipment and facility improvements, downtown development authority infrastructure and placemaking initiatives, police department equipment and facility investments. Capital improvement plan aligns with the city's master plan and is a critical tool for securing external funding sources and including grants. Adoption of the plan serves as a framework to guide budget decisions and future project implementation. So last month we presented it to you all, and we asked you to review it, take time to consider each of the requests. And this is something that's done on an annual basis, looking 5 years ahead of how we're going to both plan strategically and financially. So if you have any questions, please let me know, but this will be a recommendation to council for adoption.
So do we have any discussion from the commissioners?
Do we need a motion before we?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, may I have a motion?
Specific language?
I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council adopt the City of Lathrup Village 2026 to 2031 Capital Improvement Plan.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor?
Now we need discussion.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's right. Now, do we have discussion?
I noticed under the item for, where is it? Sanitary and stormwater, there are several entries for 2025, which is last year. Is this intended to reflect projects that were already done, or is that a typo?
So if there's any items that reflect 2025, they should just be updated to 2026, because I don't believe that they were removed. So they would just carry over from last year.
Okay.
So we can make that.
Yeah, they were related to water main replacements and lead and copper abatements, so I wasn't sure if those projects had been started and are continuing, started and completed.
Those projects, I don't believe there's any, are they under, at this time, they are underway, but we're early in it, very early. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, if I remember correctly, we keep those on there because, especially with respect to lead, because we don't know if we're gonna find more lead. And we're required to abate it when we find it, so.
Yeah, by state law.
Yeah, so- and it's under the fiscal year start column, so started in '25 is kind of the implication. Okay, fair enough. I have other stuff, but if anybody else has any questions or comments while I'm trying to put together my thought.
I have a question. So, I have a couple of questions. So the first question that I have is, we just did the motion so that we can discuss everything. And then are we going to be doing a motion to approve the capital improvement?
I already
plan?
made the motion to approve.
You made the motion.
So it's
to-
discussion and then a call to vote.
Okay, okay. Lovely, thank you. The next question that I have is kind of relating to what was being discussed, what was that, in August, relating to the, what is it that we just voted on? We had so many meetings on it, not commission, but
Oh.
city council. The capping.
You mean the Headley?
There we go.
Yeah.
The Headley. Was that passed?
No, it did
No,
not.
it was
did not
not.
pass?
No.
Okay, so then the construction of the new city hall and new police station, all those different things, where is the revenue coming from? for
So some of these are just like the master plan, they're aspirational. There
Okay.
are things that we're looking forward for funding to do. So we may not have the funding at this time, but we may come across a grant and be awarded it successfully. That would allow us to then implement the that project.
Okay,
Yeah, so we've had that, this comes up every year, generally,
Yeah.
especially when we have new commissioners on the planning commission. Because it reads like a, $4.5 million project just for water and sewer, right? We don't have the funding to actually do that. But it is important that the city keep track of projects that the city would like to execute from a
Yeah.
capital improvement perspective.
okay.
So it is, the way I think about it personally is it's a wish list. And when opportunities come up either through grants or other funding sources to actually check one of these things off, or sometimes we're required by law, sometimes unfunded mandates, to do one of these things, then at least we've got a document of, that it was in our thinking. And we're
Yeah.
aware of it, and then we can, carry forward with whatever's the appropriate way to address that capital improvement request. It's also a great opportunity for the department heads in the city to, at least once a year, think about, all right, what do I need? Are there new things that I need that weren't part of the capital improvement plan last year, but now I need them next year? A good example might be the tasers that the police is requesting, right? Those things expire every 5 or so years, or might be.
I think it's 5 years.
Yeah, and they need to be replaced, so you need to be thinking about, all right, well, if we spent $60,000 on tasers this year, well, we don't need to think about that again for 5 years, but in 5 years, so we'll need to think about that again.
Okay, thank you so much for that.
And there's another method in terms of importance of each item, and that would be to rank them. So typically when we compile each year, in a perfect world, it would be helpful if they were ranked. So that way, there's that way of kind of scaling priorities on that wish list each year.
Yeah, I think Jason kind of nailed it where it's an aspirational list. So internally, as department heads, we look at what we currently have and when it comes to capital, and also what we would like to see. Like one of the items that were added was added just recently for the DDA, where just the site plan we reviewed where it needed a parking variance, but there was a city parking lot right nearby. So the DDA, we added wayfinding signage to that parking lot. So it's things that we would like to see to come, either things that need to come because there's a capacity need for it, or things that if the funding were to come, where would it rank? So would it be top priority or would it be lower on the list?
Okay. Okay, thank you so much.
One thing that I found confusing, maybe others have too, is I thought the boulevard idea was dead, and I find Southfield is putting money into it, and I find it appears in our plan. And is it dead, or is it not
So-
dead, or what?
I can speak to that.
What's going
So,
on here?
The Southfield Boulevard project goes from Southfield through Lathrup Village all the way to Beverly Hills. That's what was being discussed by the Road Commission of
Yeah.
Oakland County. What Lathrup Village City Council voted on was to not fund a research project that Road Commission of Oakland County asked us and Southfield to invest in, to put money into kind of developing a boulevard plan. So the city, what died was, at least for this year, investment by Lathrup Village in that research project.
But I see it's still in this,
Well, we're one of
CIP.
3 communities involved in this thing, and we have no say-so over what the other communities are going to do. So what Southfield and Road Commission for Oakland County agreed to do was for Southfield to fund that research project for the section of Southfield Road between Mount Vernon and Lincoln, which is in Southfield.
so in the meantime, we'll just keep a placeholder spot in case it comes alive, is that? That's
What do you
why
mean by a
it's-
placeholder spot?
Well, it's in this plan then,
Oh, in the capital improvement plan?
yes.
Yeah, so there is, keeping it on our radar, that if the city and the city council so decide, or maybe a grant opportunity comes up, to actually invest in some aspect of a Southfield Boulevard project, it's on the radar.
And that is also, when city council did not approve it, the directive was that following the master plan process, we would see what the temperature was for residents and business owners to have that boulevard installed. And that is actually a part of the transportation survey, is people's desire to see a boulevard or to not see a boulevard in Southfield Road.
Yeah, it's a great point. So based on survey feedback, resident feedback in town halls, and things like that related to gathering information for the master plan, that might change. Like whether the city actually keeps this as part of our capital improvement plan or master plan would change based on that feedback, potentially. Or it might stay the same, depends on what people say.
Any further discussion? I think you said you had a couple more points.
No, I think everything that was important to me got covered.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so now we can take a
Now we
vote.
can vote.
All those in favor of making the recommendation to City Council to adopt the capital improvement plan 2025 to 2030 or 2031?
2026 to 2031.
Oh, I didn't change the dates. 2026 to 2031. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Next on the agenda, 8B is council input master plan update.
We were asked to engage with city council at this point of the master plan process. So we ask any city council member who'd like to speak to come on up to the
Gotcha.
podium.
Oh, I'm going to the podium? I don't, okay, all right.
I'll change it in the document.
Great, well, yeah, so a couple of things. Now, Scott, we did submit some questions to Gibbles Webster about the process, and they provided some answers. So some of the things that initiated this call for interaction have been addressed, but I think there were some other questions that came up as a result of those answers and some things. So I'm just going to take a little bit of time here and go through some of the things that I wanted to touch base on. Let me just state the first thing, and I saw it come up a little bit here even with the study session, is that a lot of my questions, and I think the community's questions, start to be answered when we know your process. So for instance, there were some questions about like why a SWAT or not a SWAT, right? And the answer was, well, further down the road, we turn those into things. And that's just a small example, but there were others. and what I would like to request, and I don't, is that I assume, because you can speak to it in public, that you have sort of a real outline of your entire plan, that be shared, definitely with council, definitely with planning commission, and then, unless there's an objection or a reason to object, also with the public. Because I think that would put each of these steps that you've been doing in context. You know, so like if you think that the last housing sort of session that you had at the last meeting here was the be-all and end-all of public engagement on housing, that leaves you a little flat. However, if you know, well, that's one step and then et cetera, I think that would be really good. So that would be a request on my part. At City Council, we talked about this yesterday, and this is just a suggestion, but looking again at the answers to some of the questions, it was clear that the process calls for engaging with council basically in the fall with a rough draft. And I think council would like to request that maybe at the end of the engagement gathering, the information gathering, as you're starting to identify real key themes, but prior to really building a draft, that we have like a midsummer or early summer meeting with you as well as a checkpoint from the council's perspective. And maybe that takes place at a meeting like this with the planning commission or possibly separately. So that was a request that we had, just to have that one extra checkpoint. I think, again, this is something that was addressed, but that I had noticed in the early things, which was a lot of the survey right now is what do you support, what do you like, what things might you like, but without that trade-off built into the question, right? Like what would you give up in order to have that? What would you like ADUs, but would you like them next door to your house? Or would you like them if they were separate, built, et cetera? So but it sounds like, again, that's part of your plan. But as a council member watching the process and not knowing that plan, I just have to judge what I was seeing. So that was the genesis of some of those questions and suggestions. So again, it would be great to see that. This is a more general statement, but it did come out of the answers that you provided. So we did also ask about the boulevard. And the question I posed was potentially a little too aggressive on the boulevard. So I want to actually put this comment, I guess, both to you, Giffords-Webster, but also the Planning Commission and also the public, which is that the boulevard entered our lives about 20 years ago as a concept, and it remains a concept that the master plan takes into account as a aspirational thing, something that's going to happen. And so you see zoning that sort of intended to allow for that. You see other decisions being made that have that as an assumption. And I think correctly, Giffords-Webster said, we're going to keep assuming that that's going to happen unless we get guidance from council, planning commission, and ultimately the public. So what I guess my suggestion, and I said this to council yesterday, and we had a discussion about it, is that we do we want the boulevard or not, one of the key things that we're looking at, whether it's at this commission level, whether in your public engagement, and as a council. Because I think we're in this zone where there were some really interesting reasons for it 20 years ago, when we were also still thinking about a city center, a downtown center. The big one, it fit with that, where we had some different ideas about how it was going to work, possibly slowing down traffic, where at least now the road commission plan doesn't call for that. So just really, again, engaging with that concept, because I think if we have a master plan that says it's going to be there and we don't want it, that's silly. And if we do want it, then we have to make sure that we really are engaging with it. And this seems like a good time to reconsider when you think about the apartments coming in, the potential makers, recasting of the city. Can we also consider this giant thing? Because hopefully we're looking at everything holistically. So that's my comment, is that if we're not doing that already, can we pivot at this point and make it a question to be considered during this process? I think that's all, except the There was another, it's just an example, and again, I think your answers on paper, which you can see, they're in the agenda packet for the city council study session if you want to catch up on that. Suggested an answer to this, but I think it's worth just bringing up to emphasize, which is, and I said this at your last meeting as well, but I was a little concerned that the comparisons with other communities, especially around housing, were a little simplistic in that they were saying, well, you know, this community has this kind of housing and we don't have any of that, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't think that's your long-term intent with that, but I do think it's important when we're looking at what we have and what areas around us have, that we look at ourselves as part of that community of communities. We don't have to be everything to everyone, we just have to be part of the solution on the housing and also serve our own interests. And then just as a short side comment, because I'm always confused by when you can have public comment here, but I was a big fan of the term Maker's Mile, but I don't want the city to be called Maker's Mile. Like, I think there's something really cool there, but if you keep thinking about it, Lathrup Village is more than just the Maker's Mile, so that's my only comment. I do like the term. I think we have to figure out how to incorporate that.
Well, it's similar to like St. Clair
Yeah.
Shores with the nautical mile. They didn't name the city.
Exactly,
Nautical mile.
exactly, yeah. It's just we're so small, once you get a mile, you're, you know, anyway. That's just a small thing. I will say one other thing on that, which is that there's a reason that a lot of those businesses are in basements, and it's because they don't pay rent, and it's hard. They're working on really thin margins. Most of their business is done via mail, right? So they don't need a building. Now, if they get bigger, and if they have an attractive storefront, that is a thing, but it is going to be a challenge. I don't think every person building, you know, making soap in their basement is going to jump at the chance to have this unless there's incentives and unless we can prove that Lathrup can generate actual traffic to a retail store. So it's just some comments on that. That's all I have. Bruce,
No, I think the second to last point that John made about considering our needs as a city relative to housing in the greater community around us is an important point and not something that I had really been thinking about before. We have a tendency to, when we're building the master plan, to focus on ourselves without consideration for some of the things that we would like to have that can be delivered by other cities that are around us, right? And so like a good example is middle income housing or missing middle housing. Like, yeah, that is a thing that probably this city needs to figure out how to address, but maybe we don't have to provide it. Maybe it's actually provided by Southfield or Berkeley or Oak Park or, you know, something like that. So, and that's, you know, can happen, but I think we need to be intentional about making those considerations in the master plan to a point where if we identify that, oh yeah, this is a need that is filled in part by some, you know, service outside of our city, that we actually document that in the master plan.
I mean, a good example is the library, right? Where we're not gonna build a library, but we want a library, but we look outside the community, and I think there's other examples of where we can be intentional about that.
Yeah, it's a great point. We're already getting some services that the city needs from external sources. The library and the fire department are the two most obvious ones, so why not consider others?
Right.
And those
Any
are
other
services,
comments?
right, but then there, you know, it's the strategy around how do we close a gap in something that we feel the city needs, or an opportunity that the city can deliver on that we're not currently taking advantage of, but can be done in collaboration with other cities.
I'd like to go on record in saying your point about the boulevard and the concept has been floating for the last 20 years, and especially in, again, thinking in terms of housing and the Maker's Mile. is something that would be beneficial to Lathrop. And as the current buildings are set back, and they're already set back, and then you have the parking in front and the buildings are set back. And if we did the boulevard, wouldn't that take you even further away from those building fronts in order for people to have access and or see them as they're, going down Southfield Road? So that's just something to take into consideration.
To that point, it's important to remember that Southfield Road is owned by the county. The parking that you're talking about is actually in the county's right of way.
Absolutely.
We don't have jurisdiction over it. And maybe that's a reason to actually participate in a boulevard project so that we actually have some control over what happens with that part of the county's roadway. If we are participating actively through our effort and our money in the project, then we have a much better opportunity to actually have say-so over what happens with that than if we don't.
And while that's understood, you're also still going to be the parking for the businesses is still going to be impacted. I'm just sort of playing devil's advocate a little bit, so we keep it all on the table and keep it, front and in the forethought as we're, doing the planning.
Yeah, for sure. Because, one of the risks of not participating in some sort of a boulevard project is that the road commission just decides to do whatever they're going to do, and it affects that parking and the businesses that utilize that parking, and now we're really in a tough situation in a city that's already parking constrained.
Agreed. There is that as well.
Yeah.
So,
And I'll just add to that point, one of the things that this body in the city has done in the past in kind of anticipation or preparation for that potential taking of that parking, and also in an effort to promote the walkability, is we've reduced the front setbacks along the commercial corridor, Village Center and the mixed use district to a 0-foot setback. So new development could be built right at the edge of the property line, which would create a situation where passerby, or those that pass by, whether it be in a vehicle or on foot, would, and if you put big windows, they would be able to see and they would be right there. So that was an effort to kind of promote businesses to maybe reconfigure the layout of the property and have the parking in the back. Although, as I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest constraints that we have is the limited lot depth for our commercial property.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's another strategy that was considered and adopted by this body and the city council, was to allow that first residential parcel, if it's adjacent to a commercial parcel, to be repurposed as parking to serve that. So there were, these are things that through the planning process, through the master planning process, through the process with the road commission, these are some steps that the city has already taken and implemented to kind of address some of those concerns. So just wanted to put that out there.
Perfect. Any other?
Yes. In keeping with your comments, I'm confused about the process. When we agreed to have study sessions, I thought, well, that's where we're going to really get into participation in the process. Instead, we had a half an hour presentation of thoughts from the professional planners about general things about planning, and then we had somehow morphed into a discussion on sidewalks. Is that our participation on housing and transportation? Or is that yet to come? Did we just miss it? And was it supposed to be part of that 15, 20, 25 minutes that we actually had some discussion today? Was that it?
The purpose of the study sessions, each month, so for this month, the study session is intended to provide a recap of last month's Planning Commission meeting regarding housing. It was also intended to continue on a conversation based on the current findings of the survey So that's why we thought it would be beneficial to prod the Planning Commission study session members with a method to engage in additional information as it relates to housing. And so that's why we went through, what is it, not the SWOT analysis, but the...
I have the feeling that
Yeah.
you view the plan as something you're doing, and you're just testing the water here and there to see if there's something that rises to the surface that maybe you ought to think about, rather than something where there's a serious engagement with the Planning Commission.
Well, so the information is still ongoing. The gathering of the information is still ongoing as it relates to housing. And as we enter into the transportation topic tonight, we will have a study session in April to recap what was discussed at tonight's meeting.
Which is about sidewalks.
Well, it
No,
could
he's
be.
talking about the presentation they're about to give about transportation. We haven't heard this yet.
Tonight's topic is transportation, but our study session was housing. So next month we will have a recap of tonight's transportation conversation, but we'll be introducing economic development next month.
Okay, so this is, we're going into a telling and note-taking session, and you're going to present.
Yes, sir.
And then we'll have some discussion next week on next month on what you presented.
Yes. We will recap as a study session with the Planning Commission on the topic of transportation, which we're going to discuss tonight.
And if I may add as well, to your point about the sidewalks, I think the sidewalk conversation was because one of the housing objectives in the previous master plan was related to walkability in the neighborhoods, right? And I think that the intention at this point is to start talking about those goals a little more in depth after everybody's had a month to sit with the data, look at that master plan chapter a little bit in depth. But I think what I'm getting out of this is more discussion around, like, when we get into the actual policy and the challenges. That'll come later on in the process as we're drafting and hearing more from you. We're still in that engagement phase. We're still reporting on what we're hearing, who we are missing potentially, and I think, as Eric mentioned, all of this will come full circle. We've done housing, we're talking about transportation, and we're talking about economic development. And once we understand all of those things holistically, what's going on in the plan, it'll be easier to dive in and talk about some of those deeper topics. Does that answer your question?
Would I be able to kind of like piggyback off of what you're saying? Because I think we might be in the same boat of confusion a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong. I was thinking that the study session, granted I did miss today, I wasn't able to make it, but I was here for last month. I was under the impression that study sessions would be what we were going to discuss in the meeting today. So today's the transportation meeting, would be discussing transportation before, so that we'd be able to hear the public's comments and really understand where people stand, so that when we come to the actual meeting, we'd be informed on what people have to say, what they feel, have that in mind, so that we'd be voting, whatever we're voting on, decisions or anything like that, that would be what that is. Is that what you were thinking as well, or no?
I need to know where the serious discussions are going to take place, because I feel like we haven't been involved yet, and when is that going to start? I didn't feel like today's study session was it, and I want to repeat what I said in the study session, that when you survey residents, don't just give us your general conclusions. Give us the data. Let us see it. I mean, I depend on that, because I am not, like I explained to you earlier, I'm not the social butterfly that's floating around the neighborhood getting all this firsthand. I really want to hear it. When you collect it, I want to see it. Not hear your general assumptions about what it was about. I want to see the data. I want to hear the conversation. That's to the extent that you're gathering.
You have a, if I'm not mistaken, do you have a dashboard
Yes, there is a website dedicated to the comprehensive plan update.
But it's definitely not gonna show the raw data of the
No.
survey results.
Right, yeah.
If I may as well, part of the reason, so we do have the data and we do intend to share all of that in full. Because the survey is still open though and ongoing, we wanna respect the analysis of it, if you will, and not share too much so as to skew the data, you know, we
Skew
just
or
wanna.
sway.
Yeah, we just wanna give a general feeling, this is what we're seeing, this is what people have talked about in the meetings, and of course that is, you know, our interpretation, but some of the interpretations are quite directly coming from multiple choice that people picked, so it's not all, you know, interpretive per se, but we do intend to provide that in full at the end of this engagement process, so you'll be able to review it as in-depth as you would like.
And this is also an update to the plan that was created in 2001. That's not a complete rewrite, right? That is a much more extensive process, and it's much more costly. And so we're having an update to the plan that currently exists.
Are we still in the, we didn't change agenda items, right? So this, is this still part of the council input?
No, we did change it.
Oh, you changed them?
Uh,
I missed the hammer throw.
Did we,
or whatever.
or maybe I'm not, maybe, hold on.
No, it's
Hold on,
fine.
John.
Well, actually, no, I
No, we haven't switched
I
yet.
haven't switched
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
Well, I just think, for clarity, I think what you're saying is the deep dive into actual zoning ideas and those things is coming in the, sort of the summer, correct?
Yes.
So again, that's where I think there was a lot of confusion because it feels so surfacey right now. And if you think that's the end of our engagement, then it feels like very surfacey. So I think, again, if we could get that more in-depth outline of where you're headed, you know, it doesn't have to, you don't have to do it 100%, but if we really understand where things are going, I think that'll get rid of a lot of confusion. And some of the pushback.
This is the timeline that was presented
Yeah,
last month.
I
and
guess I'm looking for just more detail, you know, so that we understand what this is in the context of the next, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, to Dennis's point, this doesn't tell us when are we gonna have this deep conversation on a specific topic.
Yeah.
It just tells us we're gonna have town halls for 4 months.
Sure. Yeah, we can expand upon that for our next meeting, just so you can get a visual. You know, we have the flyers that are distributed so that our point is to gather data and gather information, gather participation from the Planning Commission, from residents in the community. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the reason why the study sessions materialized the way they did was because there was concern of the lapse of participation or just engagement with the Planning Commission, just so that you can stay on top of the topics that we're discussing each month. And it just so happened that I think we considered it the way that, you know, we would have the topic of transportation, for example, as a study session, and then the following meeting, you know, that same evening would be on that same topic. But for whatever reason, based on the way that our discussion or collaboration ended up being, was that we backtracked, so that we went back to last month's conversation about housing, kind of wrapped that up. If there was any questions after that meeting that was had, could be handled or addressed during the study session. And so then that's the reason why we're proceeding in that way, so that after tonight's conversation of transportation, you can sleep on it for a month, you know, read through the ordinance chapter if it's pertinent to do that, just to kind of recap what was discussed tonight, and then have our study session next month to go over any, you know, loose ends or questions you still might have, and then that's why we wanted to engage with the Planning Commission in the exercise that we did today with the analysis, just to spark additional conversation, that we can take notes and gather that data as we continue to compile it, as we lead up into June roughly for the open house, which is where we're gonna have, you know, more of a established outreach for more conversation and workshop and hands-on engagement with the community. So that's kind of my understanding of why it ended up being that way with the study sessions.
Well, today was the follow-up on housing.
Yes, sir.
We had a half-an-hour presentation by your staff, and then a guided, structured discussion on sidewalks.
That's the way that the conversation ended up being. So
Yes.
as it relates to housing, the analysis that was asked of you was what improvements or what is important to housing that could spur, you know, improvements or quality of life for the neighborhoods. And so that's why, you know, it just so happened that sidewalks are an important component of that, apparently. That's the value that I got out of that conversation, which I maybe didn't necessarily think would.
The prompt was the objectives from the previous master plan, which we are updating, right?
Mhm.
And the specific objective we're talking about where sidewalks came up was around walkability and access to services.
Mhm.
So,
Was that the big thing that came out of the survey, that we should talk about sidewalks?
no, it was the prompt from
I
Giffords Webster.
understand, but there must have been a lot of other prompts there too.
Their prompt was to us to answer a question about what do we think are opportunities relative to the walkability
Yeah,
and
I
access to
understand.
services of the
Yeah.
city. I brought up sidewalks
Yeah.
as one thing that we have done something about. And that created a response of, we haven't done it good enough, so it's still an issue. And then we spent 10 minutes talking about it. We maybe didn't need to, right? So this is just like, it's not that, I don't think it's an intention of Giffords Webster to have us like drill down into sidewalks. They're trying to create an opportunity for us to talk about whatever it is that is important to us around these objectives, including things like, is the objective still valid? Because it's sourced from the previous master plan.
So if I could make a suggestion, just based, and I too missed the study session, I apologize, I left my office late. If we could, again, if you have like questions, concerns, suggestions, if we could get those to Austin, and maybe Austin could present those to Giffords, and then come back to you with that, so then for the next study session, then and I'm talking about from the study session tonight, if you had questions with regard to the housing that you don't feel were answered, or something you would like to have expound upon, then give those to Austin, and then Austin can give you the feedback if that would be satisfactory.
Thank you.
And then that way we could do the same thing for the presentation that we're gonna have tonight for transportation. That way, because I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of questions, and maybe the questions that we come up with tonight for transportation, give those to Austin, and that's what can be discussed during study session. You think that would be, that would bridge the
I want to make this statement, because throughout this kind of preparing for the master planning process, Chair Hillman has actually done a really good job, I think, of trying to prompt Giffords Webster to provide us with information that we can use to prepare for each of the meetings. So there was a memorandum in the packet for tonight's meeting called Comprehensive Plan Update Housing Study Session and Transportation Kickoff, with suggestions on preparing for the study session and preparing for the meeting. For preparing for the study session, it was review the 2021 comprehensive plan, review the presentation and previously provided data on housing in Lathrup Village, review the previously provided housing resources packet, and prepare questions you may have or resources or data you would like to have. And I feel like that last bullet we didn't do a good job on. So, and part of that, I think, at least from my perspective, is having not missed the previous study session and the previous planning commission meeting last month. I wasn't really geared up on the process, or so now I feel a lot more better prepared for what do I need to be thinking about in the next 4 weeks leading up to the next meeting? What homework do I have for myself?
right.
And so getting a memo like this and getting it well in advance, because it's two things. It's prompt the commission, here's the homework that you want us to do, and how we want you to be prepared, but give us enough time to actually pull it together. And you know, Eric and Hannah, both of you have talked about that several times tonight, both in the study session and in the regular meeting, about giving us time to actually consume the data that you're providing to us from the survey responses that you're getting. So getting a memo like this, but not getting it as part of an agenda packet that we get the Friday before the meeting, instead getting it as part of some sort of a communication, probably through Austin several weeks before the meeting, would be super helpful.
And will allow you to not have to do so much presenting at the beginning of the meeting, because they would have seen it already, presumably.
Yeah, if we start with
Yeah.
the questions we prepared,
Right.
right? If we did a good job preparing our questions, then it kind of forestalls all that.
I know this meeting's going long. I'm going to take advantage of the fact that no one changed the agenda item to say one more thing. And that is, it's been brought up a couple of times that this is an update rather than a rewrite. I can't see anywhere in the literature that I've seen what parameters that describes as to what is and isn't open for consideration or reconsideration. So I don't know that, for me, that's not a meaningful distinction. And when you think about the state of the city now and all of the change that's happening or being considered to, you know, from the school project on, again, I already said it, the Maker Smile, et cetera. Call it what you want, but it's a new master plan. And I understand there's probably some, process things that would be different if we were starting entirely from scratch. But if you look at where we were and where we're going, one way or another, it's a rewrite.
It comes down to cost.
No, I understand. I know what you're telling me.
It really comes down to cost.
I'm just saying it, but I don't so the cost is how much time they put it in. I get that. But it doesn't limit the scope of the questions, because those are being set by the reality that we live in. They're not being set by the budget. I understand the budget is, I just want to keep that in mind. Like, there's no, unless you're saying, well, we can't talk about X or Y. But if we can talk about X, Y, and Z, then where is the distinction between a rewrite and a...
One example I would give is like the objectives, right, from the previous master plan.
Mhm.
Right? If somebody in the city council, the planning commission, or the public came to a meeting and said, this objective I think is no longer valid, we should remove it.
Yeah.
We could have a debate about that.
Yeah.
That's one thing,
Yeah.
right? To have Giffords-Webster spend time going through each objective and have a debate about each individual objective, should we keep it or not, is too time consuming, right? Given the scope of the project. If we were
Right.
gonna do a rewrite,
Right.
then maybe we're reconsidering all of those things. So I think that because it's to the point of the amount of time that Giffords-Webster is being paid to spend helping us with this project, it's on us, right, as a city, the residents, the council, and the planning commission, to push for what we want, not wait for them to prompt us to give them what they think we.
Well, I agree with you 100% on that, and I hope that this commission does push for what they want, and that the city council pushes for what they want, and that the public pushes for what they want. And if we run up against a budget thing when it comes to our consultants who are helping us with this, I hope that we can push right through it because we get what we want.
And I think if we go back to the very beginning, we actually did do the comparison between the prior plan objectives and the current plan objectives, and we did go through and do the update.
Yeah.
Now, we're just going through and understanding and laying out each section individually as we go along as to, well, this is what we stated, but this is what it looks like.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's where we are. Thank
Fair
you.
enough.
And with that, I'm going to move us to the master plan update for transportation discussion. Poor Tim, I'm sure he's online going, move.
I didn't get that.
That was in the packet.
I didn't get a packet. All I got was a meeting notice with the two master planning.
Yes. So,
Okay, deep breath. So, as we were stating, tonight's the kickoff discussion for the transportation component of the master plan. As you can see on the screen here, this is just a brief outline of where we've been from the kickoff back in October. going through the comprehensive plan review in January, the housing meeting in February. I was not in attendance for that one, but Hannah gave me a good overview of what was discussed and everything that was compiled for that meeting, which brings us to today, the blue dot on the screen, which is the transportation discussion. So similar to how the meeting was handled in February, we're going to have a conversation about the transportation. From here on out, in April, we're scheduled to have the conversation on economic development, and then in May, Parks and Recreation, leading up to an open house in June. So there's a lot of preparation that'll come into play for that. And just to reiterate, right now we're in the data gathering and the participation process. There's no pen to paper at this point in terms of drafting any sort of amendments to or updates to the master plan. So it's pen to paper in terms of taking notes and gathering the data and having it available so that when we have the ability to do the analysis for each one of these topics, we have the ability to compile that in a manner that prepares it for the open house and then moving forward into drafting of the changes that will be made. So can't stress enough the importance of participation right now. So for all that are participating from home or listening to the presentation in the meeting from home, we'll have another Menti exercise in just a few minutes here, just to kind of spark additional conversation on the topic of transportation. So again, we mentioned this in the study session that we have survey updates, which we're very encouraged by. And so if we can get further participation from residents, non-residents, maybe business owners. For the housing survey, right now we're at 171. We had to change this and update it earlier today because of real-time increases in the survey responses. So who knows, maybe as of right now we're close to 180 responses. So again, it's very encouraging to see. But with transportation, it's more of a new survey that went live. We're at 49 responses, and then looking forward to the economic development questionnaire, we have 26 responses. So pat on the back to keep encouraging your neighbors and fellow residents to continue on visiting the website and participating in the survey. And so the ways that we're engaging, this was very important in working with Lathrup Village early on in the process, was the stressing of engagement and outreach. So we've worked closely with Austin on ways to market or outreach to show and indicate that the city has or is going through the master plan update process. So residents can engage either in person at meetings such as this, at Planning Commission public hearings, online surveys and activities. Those are also available via paper by request. And then, of course, the open house event in June, which we hope to have a large turnout. And so far, every indication is that the residents here are engaged, so we want to just continue to encourage that participation. This screen or slide, we wanted to express to the Planning Commission where we're seeing a little bit of weakness or just vulnerability in terms of participation in the surveys. So we have the city mapped out into 5 different neighborhoods. The 2 neighborhoods to the south of 696, so the brown area and the purple area, each percentage that you see, the one on the left in white, is the percentage of that neighborhood that, let me back up, the total population of Lathrup Village is represented by that left percentage, meaning, so for example, the red, 30% of Lathrup Village's population lives in that neighborhood, the lower northwest portion. So with that in mind, the southwest neighborhood, the 19% represents 19% of the overall total population. The percentage to the right of that shows the amount of participation for the surveys. So while the southwest neighborhood consists of 19% of the overall population, they only have a participation rate of 6%.
Yeah.
So the southeast portion, we're also having a lack of participation there in the purple. They make up 9% of the population, but only have a 5% participation rate. Interestingly enough, the red area, one of the largest neighborhoods, consists of 30% of the population, but they have a high percentage of participation rate at 41%. Same with the blue area, 29% of the population, and they have a healthy participation rate of about 24%. That leaves the last northeast section. They make up of about 17% of the population and have a participation rate of 20%. So we want to encourage additional participation from the neighborhoods to the south so that we have a more equal distribution of data received from residents. And I learned something earlier today at the study session where a resident had indicated that the separation of those two southern neighborhoods was well established prior to 696, which I was not aware of. So that might be something that we just think about in terms of just the existence of those two neighborhoods over time and how they might be further disconnected from the city by way of 696 and what opportunities we have to bridge that disconnect. And as we're seeing with data gathering, there's a disconnect with participation rates. So we just want to, stress and underscore the importance of participation and getting feedback from all residents.
And I will add to that as well. We will be doing this kind of engagement tracking for each survey, and we're doing it with all of the demographic questions asked. This is just one example of how we're tracking. So the Planning Commission and also the Communications Committee can use these things as future baselines. Where are our weak points? What do we need to maybe ramp up during this process?
So we're just going to have a brief overview here. We're going to look at some of the existing conditions regarding transportation, the broad general topic of transportation and planning, and then finishing off with some discussion and questions. So can move on to the next. Was this you or me? Okay. So I believe this is in your packet, and so we just wanted to highlight some aspects of transportation just to have some conversation points. This is a graphic that represents the number of vehicles per household. So the portion of the pie on the lower section is 50% of households have 2 vehicles available. That in and of itself indicates that the village or the city is maybe auto-oriented for households to have at least 2 vehicles. The pink and the yellow represent at least 1 vehicle in yellow, and then 3 or more vehicles in pink. So this pie represents more or less a characteristic of the community that to live here, you probably have some dependence on automobile travel on your day-to-day basis. So commute times to work, this graphic shows that the majority of commute times for Lathrup Village residents is approximately anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes, those bars on the lower end of the screen. It's interesting to note that less than 10 minutes and then from 10 minutes to 14 minutes, those lower 2 bars indicate a relatively short commute time, and that amounts to about 20%. So there's a significant percentage of the population that can commute to work within, from 0 to 15 minutes, which also might indicate that there's some work from home in those categories as well. So the majority of residents, have a commute pattern that's roughly within a half an hour based on this data that we've received. And then this is just an interesting conversation piece identifying the time departing for work. So on the left-hand side of the screen, that's anywhere from midnight to 5 o'clock in the morning. That 6.3% of commuters leave and depart for work at that time. And then the graphic kind of dips down to the 5:30 a.m. To where it takes a turn and spikes more towards the rush hour period. and it levels out around 6:30 and then spikes again at around 7, takes a dip around 8:30, and then unfortunately there's a little bit of a skew at the very end where the last bit of data accounts for a 9 a.m. to throughout the rest of the day. So you know, we wish that it wasn't really reflected that way, and that we could have a little bit more data in regards to that. But this is just more or less taking a snapshot of when the rush hour traffic might be, you know, at its peak, and it looks like that's roughly around the 7 o'clock to 7:30 hour.
And the census does that too, to kind of separate out who's leaving during rush hour and who's not. That's sort of their intent with the data, and that's why they don't granulate it past 9 a.m. But you know what we're seeing is 75% of the community does leave before then.
This is a really interesting graphic here in terms of analyzing data. Back in 2010, you can see the largest bar there, 88.1% is drive alone, commute alone in a vehicle. And then the work from home is the far right-hand side at about 6.4%. And then in yellow is carpooling. So, you know, back in 2010, 88% commuted alone. And then in 2020 was the obvious, you know, turn where you would think that with the world events at the time with the pandemic, that work from home would change, and we certainly see that as the data was collected after 2020, where work from home had increased to 22.3%. What's also interesting here is the change in the amount of commuters that walked. From 2010, it was roughly 1%. In 2020, about 1.9, and then it increased, you know, in the last 4 years to about 2.4%. So it's just interesting to kind of analyze and understand where it is or why it is that more commuters might be walking to work. But combined with the work from home, that has an impact on the overall vehicle miles traveled or drove alone, which brought that down to 73.7%. So just an interesting way to analyze, you know, world events and, you know, snapshots in time, looking back at 2020 and the pandemic and how that might have changed things. It certainly is a benchmark in terms of our analysis in how we analyze this kind of data going forward, especially as it relates to a master plan. So, next. This map shows the transportation or transit network map. This is an update to one that we had on file over the last few years. So on this map, we wanted to show where there's sidewalks, the bike routes, which are highlighted in green, where we have the Hawk signal crossings on Southfield Road, those are highlighted in pink. The crosswalks, those are a little bit more difficult to see. Those are highlighted in black, roughly at Southfield Road in 696, and then I think there's another one in the Village Center District. And then the smart bus routes. So that would be the corridors of Southfield Road and 12 Mile Road. So what you see in blue there is a buffer of, do we have the distance of the buffer?
It is a 5 to 10 minute walk or quarter-mile buffer around those bus stops. That blue circle that goes around the Southfield corridor.
So it's going to take 5 to 10 minutes to get from Lincoln to 12 Mile?
No.
Because that's what it looks like, right? It's like a big blue blob that goes the entire length of Southfield Road.
We can modify that, yeah. But,
Yeah.
So
I think what you're trying to imply is that a circle around, like let's take the upper left-hand quadrant where you have the 3 bus stops, that you can get from one end of that bubble to the other end of that bubble in 10 to 15 minutes.
Yes, it's a quarter-mile radius around the bus stops is a central point. So anything highlighted in blue, you are in a 5 to 10 minute walk of a bus stop. So actually that blue blending together is what you typically want to see, right? That there's not many gaps along the Southfield Road corridor, and it's a little hard to see up there, but the map at its full 24 by 36 size will show kind of like these dotted outlines where those radii are, but for all intents and purposes, the major corridors are almost fully serviced by a bus route.
And as we think about the Southfield Road corridor and the questions that, we're hoping to have answered, especially as it relates to whether or not our respondents regarding the survey indicate whether or not to want to see a boulevarding or the improvements per the Road Commission plan. This will play a role in that, in analyzing, where bus stops are, where crosswalks are located, where the hawk signals are located. It all becomes part of that component of the master plan as it relates to the transportation topic here. And so we're just at the tip of that conversation in understanding what direction that's going to take eventually. But this data is giving us an understanding of where we have, different modes of transportation other than just vehicles, and where parking lots would be required or more a necessity. Where we have bus stops along Southfield Road and certain radius of distance of minutes to walk. Those might be areas where we can take a second look at parking and potentially consider a reduction in parking in those areas, or where there's bike routes that cross Southfield Road. If we implement potentially requiring the building of bicycle parking racks, that might be another way to alleviate or encourage the reduction in the amount of parking. So all of that's on the table in terms of discussion, especially for tonight on transportation. So anything that crosses your mind, this is the time to have the master plan open for considerations. And then lastly, this map shows the smart bus network through Lathrup Village. 420 is the bus line that traverses Southfield Road through the community. 720 is 12 Mile Road, but those essentially are the only two smart bus routes. But the community is serviced by transit, especially in the north-south routes. So.
And I would like to point out the 740 goes almost all the way to Norton Shores, and then you can
St. Clair Shores.
St. Clair Shores. I'm sorry, from the west side. St. Clair Shores, and then you can go all the way west, almost to Novi, on that route. So it is connected to that regional fabric, to say the least.
Yeah. I used to work in Farmington, and that bus would go all the way
To
across,
Farmington.
I think, over to like Drake Road or somewhere like that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Is that available?
I don't see any bus routes.
This map?
Yeah.
I don't.
What's that?
Did we have this one in the packet?
We have the smart routes
that's
map
not-
in
that's
the
not in
transportation resources link.
On the website, right?
Email to everybody?
Yes, and it was in the memo note that we sent out. Yes. So it's a separate document, but it's got the entire smart system in high resolution, and it's also on their website as well. And this bus route does come about every 20 minutes.
In a newsletter?
All right, this map here shows pavement conditions. I don't know if it's a surprise to anybody, but I haven't done a full survey myself, on the ground survey of road conditions. I have seen some of the red, but also am encouraged by a lot of the green, or the blue-green, which blue-green is showing the pavement conditions that are the best. Those are rated good. The yellow areas are fair, and then the red streets are labeled as in poor condition. So this is just giving a snapshot of where we might need to see some improvements. It looks like 696 will be going from red to green, hopefully very soon, as that reconstruction project finishes up. But Southfield Road, certainly through the northern portions of the city, have been redone. So those are in green, but some improvements to the south which again would be just another reason to have some input from residents on the south side of 696. Maybe they have some suggestions or comments to share regarding the condition of the roads on the south side of the community.
And this is subsequent to the work that was done as a part of the planning commission, not planning commission, the infrastructure committee, between 2017 and, 2020? We did the roads, the culverts, the ditches, we did some sidewalk replacement.
This
So
would-
all of that's factored.
Yeah, this reflects the current
Yeah.
Okay.
Pacer rating.
Okay.
Because Southfield was resurfaced just last year, right? So, it probably prior to that, it wouldn't be shown in green. So it is a recent map
Yeah.
showing that. Yeah. All right. This map here shows crash sites. So 734 total crashes over the last 3 years. Most crashes happen along Southfield Road, as you can see, roughly 696 in Southfield Road. There's a lot of conflict points there. There are a few dots that trickle into the neighborhoods, but by and large, primarily Southfield Road at 610. I know that there's a lot of high-speed ramp traffic around the Lathrup Boulevard crossing on the east side of Southfield Road, and then I would imagine just a lot of the Michigan left-hand turns that cross over the freeway that interact with the Southfield Road and 696 interchange. And again, the vast majority are all vehicle related. So one of the things we want to keep in mind is that if we have improvements to alternative modes of transportation like pedestrian routes, bike routes, that with those improvements, would that change the results of bicycle and pedestrian on a map like this? So that as of right now, the reason why bicycle and pedestrian conflicts might be low is because we don't have a whole lot of that type of transportation, people walking or bicycling. But would those numbers increase if we do have an increase or an improvement in those modes of transportation? So that would just be something that we would want to kind of keep in mind as we analyze that type of data. So
We do have some data around bicycle traffic because we've had bicycle routes that cross that Southfield Road and 696 intersection for several years now.
okay,
And so if it's still one this year, then that's an indication that that waymaking, that setting up that bicycle route,
is
like
working.
hasn't had any impact,
Right, right.
which is fine. It's good data to have.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it's just to keep those types of, those types of things in mind as we go through this type of data analysis. So,
There have been, the road commission there was a grant to actually do a study of the safety of that intersection at 696 and Southfield Road. And what we learned is that it's one of the top 10 most dangerous intersections in the county.
is that overall or just with?
In the county.
But I mean.
Overall in the county.
Overall modes of transportation?
Just vehicle.
Vehicle, okay.
So we know that. It's not a big surprise. It's very dangerous. And people have known about it for a long time. There was actually a news report that was triggered by a resident a week or two ago, talking specifically about 3
weeks ago.
3 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago, there was a television news report that was triggered by a resident reaching out to a news agency, it was specifically about the westbound traffic on 11 Mile headed towards Southfield Road. And how dangerous that is because there are stop signs there that just before the intersection, but people don't pay attention to it, they run it. There obviously is, kind of alluded to it, traffic crossing southbound on Lathrup Boulevard coming out of the north neighborhoods heading to the south creates a lot of accidents happen because of that crossing because it's unmarked and
Right.
so we just, all that to say, we just know that that intersection is really dangerous. The city, has the impact of what is happening with how people drive in that area. We have no stake in that. We don't own it. We don't own the road. The road is owned, the service drive, and on Southfield Road is owned by the Road Commission for Oakland County. And the freeway obviously is owned by the federal government, so it's tricky.
Yeah.
I think one of the very confusing things for, especially those of us who drive that stretch on a regular basis, and you're headed west on 11 Mile or 696 Service Drive, and right at Michigan First, and the traffic, the stop sign that was there has been covered because of the construction on the freeway ramps. And it's like, why would they cover that when you still have a side street that's there and people have to come down the side street? And unless you're a common, a courteous person, people are just gonna blow right through that. Those of us who live, we know you need to stop, make sure there's nothing coming, and then proceed. And so I don't even know if there's a way for us to address that with MDOT to say, hey, causing a problem here, but
Yeah.
yeah, so.
And it was uncovered yesterday, it was covered today.
That's weird.
Well, there you have
Yeah, I think so.
it. I think you have more, or,
Yeah, just a few more slides when we have a Menti exercise where
Okay.
you can participate in some questions.
So that's most of the existing data, but again, we're open to any suggestions you have. If there's something you want to know, if there's more data you'd like to have, hey, I think we need to know more about this before we can make a decision on this, please let Austin know, and we will be happy to try to provide that for you. And so with that, because this is all, relating back to the 2021 master plan, we just want to briefly touch on what was the goal of transportation. What did the community at that time say that they were looking for? And that reads, an efficient and safe multimodal transportation network that offers mobility options to residents of all ages and abilities. So that's the current goal in there right now, and there are 7 different objectives associated with that goal, and I'm going to read through them in brief because the next, we have a Menti to kind of get a sense of, do those objectives, are they still relevant? And again, we're going to talk about this more, but so those objectives were to promote the use of accepted traffic calming and access management techniques. We looked at providing a safe, efficient, non-motorized pathway system, which was that map that we showed. That's kind of the framework for that. Promoting public education and roadway planning and decision-making to help residents and property owners understand both short and long-term goals and impacts of transportation projects. I think that one may be particularly timely with these potential Southfield Road project. Looking at requiring infrastructure decisions to match the master land use plan, exploring innovative traffic designs and flexible engineering standards that improve safety and efficiency of the roadways, exploring opportunities for alternative transportation. That's, again, back to that active roadway network, things other than cars. And I think we've seen, quite a few new things pop up too since 2020. You've got the e-scooters, the e-bikes, you've got like park and walk. Yeah. So there's more to consider than there was even 10 years ago, and that's all integrated with phones, so I encourage to think about some of those things. And then the last one, we were already thinking about the future with it, I suppose, but monitor the plan for future trends in transportation in terms of autonomous and connected vehicles. And I think at the time that this plan was written, that was a pretty growing and big idea. So, just some evaluation, is that something we still want to consider? With that, part of our presentation, to make it more interactive, public attending can participate, and I will ask Attorney Baker, did we determine if the commissioners are able to participate?
Yeah, it was explained more thoroughly to me that it's not a vehicle for commissioners to have conversations amongst themselves. Anything that they input here will be visible by the public,
Okay.
just as if anybody else in the public puts information here. So
Perfect, thank you.
based on that information that Joe provided after last month's meeting, I don't have an issue with this body if they want to participate. I would encourage them to do so.
Perfect. Thank you for the clarification and apologies on any miscommunication about the mentee. So if everyone attending would like to pull out their phone and participate, and this QR code will be repeated. We just have a few questions to kind of make this more interactive, and again, it's meant as a discussion boost. It's meant as a way to be interactive for this, you know, but there's obviously many more chances and opportunities for everyone to be involved, whether it be online or in person.
Do you want to read the code for those at home?
Oh, yeah. Well, so the code, if anybody's listening but cannot see the screen, the code would be, if you go to www.menti.com and enter the code 32682359, and that'll connect you to our activity.
If somebody in the future is watching the recording, it won't work then, right?
It's already active.
You have to do, it's live now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's live
Yeah.
now.
So just so people know if they're watching the recording of the meeting, like, it's too late, you can't participate.
Yeah, it is live now, but we're asking similar questions in the survey, and again, like, we would encourage everybody to take that survey, and I appreciate the commissioners emphasizing that. So if anybody still needs this, let me know, but, so looking at all those objectives that we just listed off, the mentee is going to prompt you to go through with a slider and rank them in terms of priority. And the reason we did this is because, you know, we can all recognize that many of these objectives are, you know, maybe positive things or things that we would strive for. So in a world where we're prioritizing, just getting a sense of what do you think is still maybe relevant to the plan, what might be less relevant, and then opening up to discussion of the commissioners on this. We'll give a few minutes for everybody to respond. There it goes. Yeah. And this code will stay up there the whole time, so if you get disconnected, don't worry about it, it'll repeat itself. Yeah, it does. We'll give everybody a couple of minutes, because I know I believe this goal had more objectives than any other goal in the plan, so. And if you are watching at home, I'll repeat that code again. It is 32682359.
And we strongly encourage anyone that is watching from home and everyone that's here to participate, because this is a group and team effort for the city of Lathrop, and we need everyone's input, so.
Yeah. Well, and everyone in this room has participated. I do want to take some time in this process to, you know, throw it back at the commissioners. Is if you have any comments or thoughts about this, is it what you expected? If you have any thoughts about these objectives in general, or any questions for us.
Commissioner?
I assume we'll get to comment on specific issues after you finish this visit.
Yeah, if you have some specific issues, but if you'd like to talk about the like an issue that you have with an objective, you can do so now. If there's like one that stands out to you.
I mean, from my perspective, when I was reading through these, I was thinking about the changes in engineering. I'm paraphrasing, right? Like, how do you take advantage of like different ways of engineering roadways in order to either improve traffic flow or I can't remember what, and I can't read it from this.
There's quite a few.
Not the alternative transportation one, but
Explore.
innovative traffic design.
Yeah.
That's it. Innovative traffic design. Of course, the first thing that pops into my head is traffic circles, right? Roundabouts, right? If we had roundabouts on Southfield Road, we wouldn't need the hawk signals. But not likely to happen. But I think that there may be creative and innovative traffic design that either we're not already aware of or hasn't been developed yet. Right? And so the question is, in my mind, what's the best way for us to get feedback about innovation and engineering standards so that this commission and the city at large can potentially incorporate that into what we would be considering in terms of roadway improvements? Because all the roadway improvement projects that have happened while I've been on city council for 2 years are repaving projects. It's just improving what's already there. There really hasn't been any significant change. The one thing you could point to is the installation of the hawk signals. That's pretty much it. So it doesn't seem to me like we've been really taking advantage of innovation in engineering and design standards. So how do we do that? How do we get the information about where the innovations are going so that we can consider them as potentially things that can be implemented in the city?
Sure. Yeah, I think we have a slide coming up in one of the next few slides that has examples of different like traffic calming measures and that sort of thing. So kind of related to that, but also at the next study session. So for April's study session, we'll be on traffic. We have got commitment from the Oakland County Road Commission. A representative will be in attendance to have a conversation regarding transportation, but maybe even more specifically.
So please ask them to come prepared with what they know about where design and engineering is going relative to improving traffic safety and calmness.
I understand that there is a grant for repainting the intersection at Lathrup and 11 Mile. Is that correct?
We were waiting to hear back on that one. We did
Excuse me?
submit
Is
a
that
grant.
You submitted for a grant?
Yep.
Okay. That is a must-do somewhere or another.
We have the engineering work. It's ready to go. We just need the funding.
Yeah, because we have to slow down the traffic coming off the exit. And those guys think it's 50 miles an hour from here to Southfield. It's not. And we have to mark off that intersection as a place for everybody to think about, okay, do we leave this space open here for some reason? Yeah. If the traffic stops, you've got to leave that space open so people can cross. That is one way or another. It's a fairly simple thing to do with signage, but maybe we need one of those speed signs too that reads your speed back to you.
That is included in part of the engineering plans, is to have a speedometer.
Good.
I have a quick clarifying question. Giffords Webster, I'm sorry, I don't remember both of your names right now. My apologies.
That's okay.
You said the April study session will have a representative from Oakland County present?
Road Commission.
Road
Yes,
Commission.
ma'am.
The Oakland County Road Commission, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Sorry, I was just finishing responding. You're good.
You're done?
Mhm.
Okay. So, I'd like us to explore whether, under traffic calming, we could consider landscaping. If Southfield were less just a highway and more of a greenway, but that's slow traffic. Because if we can make it beautiful and a place to enjoy, rather than a place to endure and get the hell out of as soon as you can, would that make a difference in traffic speed and safety? Right now, it's a clutter. from one end to the other. There's no consistent green design. But yet we have a lot of space that it's not always taken up with parking to the roadside. And there are a few spots that have been beautifully landscaped. Like, is it Panera's or next to it? There's a couple of spots there that are very nicely landscaped. But the whole mile and a half are beautifully landscaped. Seems to me that would be a place to take a breath and slow down and respect the area. So I'd like to see that explored, and I know a lot of the people in Lathrup Village would like to see that explored. It's one of the cheapest way we can beautify and improve the whole experience of Lathrup Village. Secondly, the same thing on streets like Lathrup Boulevard, which I live on. There are two of us on Lathrup Boulevard that have experimented with planting tall flowers to stop people from cutting the corners short, driving over the grass, driving over the damn boulders even, knocking them into the ditch. Turns out zinnias that solve a lot of problems because they're up just high enough to be in the field of vision so people know the corner is there and they enjoy them. I tell people I now get yelled at. Hey, sir, your flowers are gorgeous. You know. And people stop and roll down their windows. Now that sounds like a traffic calming thing in a situation where what you go up and down these streets, everybody's got a problem with people cutting the corners going into the grass. That's why we have white boulders all over the place, and they don't always work. People still cut into those corners. So maybe the same thing needs to be thought of in terms of Lathrup Boulevard and any other street where there's a bit of a impetus to speed. Stop and enjoy it. Remember, this is a place of beauty and a place where people take care of things. Those are two things that off my list I'll check off as relating here.
The one comment in response to plantings at the intersection. I don't know if there's any language within the codes that prohibits obstructions. So anything.
There is.
Well, right. So, if that was something to be considered, just so that there's awareness of plantings that are obstructing intersections, then now it becomes a public
If you plant
safety.
sunflowers at the intersection, that's a no-no. Does that need to be spelled out? Maybe. People also need to be encouraged to do what is permissible. And I think we need more emphasis on that. Because a lot of us are very hesitant about, do I even dare put a spade down here? This isn't my land, really, is it? But yet, and yet we're responsible for its maintenance in some way or another. So that's an issue. Leftover issue on Lathrup Boulevard is the whole matter of private development of off-street parking. And I remember that our mayor said in a previous year, it's kind of a Wild West. People have done every kind of thing with that. And I could tell some stories, but I won't take your time. But there is no plan. And some people have forged in where there is no plan. Somebody before us poured 45 feet of concrete curb. I found it under the bushes when we were digging up the old bushes. And to shape an arc for parking. I maintained the shape by pulling out the bushes and pulling out all that curb and then planting and recovering it. So, but all that without any guidance. I could only plead is, I'm just maintaining what's here, guys. The next neighbor has squares of asphalt. Named right after him, his squares of asphalt. And, you know, there's all kinds of things done with that berm, we call it, or right-of-way, on a street that was clearly originally laid out to be a boulevard, to actual boulevard. And you can tell it by the width of the street and the berms, 32-foot berms on each side. Okay, enough of that. But I would like to see something about that worked into the plan, that this could be a positive thing.
Yeah, to that point, not to take you off focus, but we have had conversations in the Planning Commission about updating zoning ordinances relative to permeable and impermeable surfaces, specifically because of this point, right? These parking pads that people are installing on their property and what used to be grass and is now a cement surface, which creates problems relative to water runoff, rainstorms, and things like that. So I think we have done some work on that, on this point, in that context. There's more to do.
Not their property. It's on the other, on the street side of the sidewalk. That's not their property.
Yeah, so if it's property that doesn't belong to the property owner and they're developing it, then that's a code enforcement issue.
And some of these issues that you're raising, these are more targeted to existing amendments to existing ordinances. These are not things that necessarily would be incorporated into a master plan.
If it's part of our vision for the community to make the quote-unquote boulevards beautiful and slow, we shouldn't pass it by. Where else is this guidance going to come from?
Well, it's going to come from the ordinances themselves. I mean, it could be an objective that you want to encourage traffic calming through landscaping. And so, but again, this document is more so for developers, outsiders looking to come to your community and saying, okay, I have this idea for a development, or, how is that going to fit into this community's future vision? And then it's also a document that when this body is considering site plan applications, or the ZBA is looking at variance requests, they can look to this document and say, okay, does this proposed development, does this fit with the vision of our future? It's not necessarily something that this body is going to look at and say, all right, well, page 7, this week we got to work on our zoning ordinance that deals with landscaping in the right of way, because that was part of the master plan. So that you can separate those two things and you can still achieve both goals. If that's a priority for this body to revisit off-street parking and parking pads, or if there's a directive that, okay, maybe when we look into it, the current ordinance kind of addresses the concerns that we're bringing up here. So then maybe it's now, like to Jason's point, it's more of a code enforcement issue. It's an implementation of the existing ordinance and ensuring that all of the residents are following these standards. And that's where I didn't speak up earlier, but some of you want to have more suggested having more in-depth conversations about these. We spend a lot of time talking about how does the process work, when is the expectation. If we just kind of threw out some of these ideas, we as a body, and Eric and Hannah could, as the consultants, can look at this and say, all right, I think this does fit, or this I think is better. If we focus this type of a project on maybe revisiting a specific ordinance, it can kind of be coordinated in that way, and then we won't be left feeling, commissioners won't be left feeling, or audience members won't be left feeling like, hey, I had this idea, but I didn't even get a chance to express my idea. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
So are we, any other discussion?
I think you have
So we
more
can
slides,
get this
right?
answer,
There's
yeah.
more objectives.
We got an hour ahead of us.
Yeah, so our, for the master plan, for the update for transportation, you have a couple more slides?
Yep.
Yes, we do, and one of those slides is actually very related to traffic calming and trees, and I hope it rounds out the points that Commissioner Nordmo was making. And those results, by the way, will get saved, so when we do our reporting on engagement, we'll talk about all of these things. So kind of moving into how, just a couple slides here on how transportation and planning relate as topics and what was talked about in the previous plan. So both in your non-motorized transportation plan and in the previous master plan, one of the concepts that was talked about a few times was complete streets. And for anyone who's maybe not familiar with that concept, it's designing the road to accommodate all modes of transportation, you know, from automobiles to pedestrians, bikes, and public transit users. So it kind of underscores like this this concept that we want to have everybody be able to get down the street safely in the mode that they choose. But that being said, there's really no one size fits all. We can do this in a variety of ways, and it really requires careful planning, design, and coordination between not just the city, but the public, different levels of government, you know, this to really achieve this type of thing. So kind of knowing that going forward, and that's why as the planning consultants, we've asked someone from the Oakland County Road Commission to join the conversation next month, and they will be there to answer questions or concerns, and that's starting this process of more communication between levels of government. And like I said, there's no one size fits all. Sometimes it's a large-scale project with a lot of investment, but other times it's just simple things like the example on the left is a quick build pedestrian crossing example from Seattle. You know, that improved the complete network of the street. And then all the way on the right, we have a Michigan example. It's a little hard to see in the pavement, but that is a parking zone, and it effectively acts as a buffer between the moving vehicles and the walking pedestrians. It increases safety and kind of narrows that streetway. So, you know, there's a lot of examples to look at, and I think to the point brought up about can we get more information about some of these innovative techniques, what's out there, I think that we would be happy to provide that leading into the next meeting for transportation. You know, in effort of this complete streets from the previous master plan, the city has installed 3 pedestrian crossing signals now along Southfield Road, namely near Margate and Southfield, Wiltshire, and California Drive. That's the Hawk signals that we've been talking about. So that's just one step towards that previous complete streets idea that was visited in the previous master plan. So the city is actively working on that, and I think through this process we can narrow down some of those goals and continue that work. And then we just wanted to talk about how traffic calming, you know, and transportation design doesn't happen in a bubble. You know, it's related to aesthetics and economic development and sense of place. So traffic calming and placemaking can go hand in hand with some of these concerns of like, well, how is it going to change our community? Can we have it be both beautiful and functional? Well, the answer is yes. It just takes a lot of coordination to get there. But based off of, you know, evidence and other studies that have come out over the last 20 years, there's been associations that trees and vertical elements do tend to make drivers slow down. You know, it's a psychological phenomenon. When you enter a more dense area, you know, you tend to naturally slow down as a driver because your brain takes the cues. Oh, there's more things I have to watch out for. There could be people, there's buildings, there's trees, and a lot of that creates this tunnel effect. You know, you feel more enclosed, so you naturally slow down. So kind of taking that into account, that to Commissioner Nornwell's point, trees are one way you can get other benefits while getting the traffic benefits. But of course, that would have to be explored more as it might relate to this community. And we've just kind of given some examples from nearby. This one was
Royal Oak.
Royal Oak, that's right. Yep. And some of you may drive this. You know, you can just see this is one example where this is all one road, it's all Main Street, but it's been split in the middle. So when you're driving down it, it really feels probably more like 2 roads, and it adds a sense of enclosure when you have trees on the side of the road. So that's just, one local example of a street. Is it the same as Lathrup Village? No, but it's one possibility to think about. And how does our ordinance relate to what it looks like now and what we may want it to look like in the future? Another example we pulled from Ferndale. This is Livernois, a smaller scale example, but you can see there's, as a driver, when you're coming up to this area, you're seeing the vertical element of the bike separation path, you're seeing the trees on the left, and I would think that, you kind of naturally want to slow down there. So we just kind of wanted to introduce some of those topics as it relates to transportation. And I don't know if there were any more questions about complete streets. We have a little, one or two more Menti interactive questions to wrap up the night, but if you have any more questions relating to this topic.
Yes, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
It's a clarification question, like 2 or 3 slides back. I just wanted to understand more slightly by what you meant by, it was one with 3 pictures, one of like a sidewalk. Yes.
Yeah.
So where on here is the sidewalk buffer, and like what is that used for?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because it's so there's actually no cars parked there in this photo, but naturally, like if there was a car parked there, it would serve as a natural buffer between people walking on the sidewalk and cars driving on the road. And it doesn't have to be a parking space, it could be planters, or it could be just how you see on the edge of that sidewalk, how there's kind of that brick laid at the edge.
Yeah.
That's also not necessarily a place people walk, but it's kind of a buffer served for when cars open their doors, or someone waiting to get into a car. So just having those space differentiations make people feel safer, and when you have cars parked on the road too, people tend to slow down because they're not knowing if a door is going to open or someone's going to get out. So just some of these visual cues are more psychological than anything else, and I think we just wanted to bring attention that there's many, many examples of that to explore. But does that answer your question?
It definitely does. So
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And so then again, we have a couple Menti questions just to wrap up this conversation, and give everybody a chance to participate more actively.
Is this a different QR code from before?
It's the same one.
Same one?
It's saying it's waiting for presenter, if you were already in it.
Yeah, it's waiting for me to go to the next
Do we have to do it again?
Okay,
so let's
so we
do
don't have to
that.
do it again.
Yeah, do
Okay.
it again.
Yeah, if you're already in, I'll just go to the question because it does stay up there on the side. But so in one or two words, what are your top concerns relating to transportation in Lathrup Village? This is going to generate a word cloud, so that's kind of why it's a 1 or 2 word exercise. But it's just to get a general idea. What are your thoughts with this process?
So we need to go through this one again?
Yes, I believe you can enter more than one. Yeah, there's no limit. If you have multiple words or concerns, definitely share them. Appreciate everyone's participation. And we are happy to provide more resources relating to complete streets or design guidelines as well, if that's something of interest. There are some current resources too that were provided alongside the memo that can be reviewed over the next month.
I had backed out. No, I can't get back in.
Oh, no. Will it let you rescan the QR code? Oh,
Can you do it from here?
maybe that one up
I might have to.
Maybe too close.
there. There we go. For anyone else, if it's not scanning for you, you can go to menti.com and enter in the code as well. A lot of different stuff coming in. All right, well, if you guys think of anything else, definitely feel free to keep adding. It will update live. I see a few more responses coming in, so I'll give it a minute if we need more time.
For my sake, when taking this information and digesting it, I'd be curious, where did it go? Emergency access? What the concern is, or what the underlying, I can speculate, but just so that I know what's meant by that, emergency access. Is there hindrance to emergency access? Is the emergency access where you have speeding emergency vehicles and it's the speed that's the factor? Like, what is the thought process behind that?
That wasn't my comment, but the common theme with that is the closed off streets.
Oh, on the east side.
Well, east side, west side.
It actually was my comment, and that's exactly what I meant.
Gotcha. Okay. Just for context and understanding, like, what's meant by
So yeah,
it.
there is discussion, and the city is opened up on the west side, San Jose. They put a siren activated gate. That's the.
On the west side, right? But still on the east side.
But
there's the
yeah, that was
separation.
one of the issues that was raised by the Southfield Fire Department, was that access.
Mhm.
And when that was brought up, there was, and I'm gonna speak for the residents, but there was a lot of opposition to opening those streets back up.
Okay. Thank you.
And where's that?
Pretty much if you look on a map,
That's good
Lathrop's
context
pretty
to know.
sealed off
Yeah.
from the outside when it comes to entering the city from the east or the west. If you're not coming in on 11 mile, 12 mile.
It's up here, right?
Well, there, but also on the east side of the city, pretty much all of those streets.
Oh, yeah, the east side,
All dead ended.
yeah, you can't go from Lathrup Boulevard east into Southfield through any of the side streets. They're all blocked off. And so if there's a fire truck trying to get into Lathrup Village through Southfield, east of Lathrup Boulevard, they cannot.
But that could be handled again through landscaping and in a way that intimidates normal driving, but a fire truck would know how to get through.
Yeah. If you're
Is the
here
concern like
in
emergency
Southfield,
response
you
time?
can't get into the city.
Yeah,
You
that
have to
was
go to
part
one of the
it.
mile roads or to
The
Lincoln.
other
You
big
can walk
concern that
through.
comes up.
You can walk
Get a
through it.
vehicle through.
Why I think a lot
Correct.
of people are
That's
opposed to it
correct.
is because they're concerned about cut-through traffic. People are always looking for a quicker way to get
Yeah.
north to south, and sometimes that means going through neighborhoods, which leads to the larger words: speeding, running stop signs, safety, slowing down. That's been a pretty much ongoing concern, I think, for residents, is probably as long as we've had roads in the city.
Yeah, I think, I know residents on Lathrop Boulevard specifically have complained about cut-through traffic during construction projects, right?
It's terrible.
So there is a sense that any change to the current configuration of how traffic flows in the east side of the city, both north and south of the freeway, will generate more traffic and potentially more unsafe traffic, more speeding.
And ignoring stop signs.
That always happens, yeah, nobody pays attention to stop signs on Lathrup Boulevard, it's
You know,
terrible.
posting the police there helps
That did
until
help.
people realize, oh, there's nobody in the car. But still something needs to happen.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Because I just watch them go down the street, keep moving.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're gonna end up in somebody's front of the house.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll go to the next one.
Yeah, so it sounds like just by and large, speeding, stop signs, just that lack of yielding by automobiles seems to be some of the major concerns. So kind of looking into that, we can explore more of those topics next month at the study session and discuss them more. So that being said, these are some of the challenges that we see, but like, what are some of the opportunities to improve transportation in Lathrop Village? As far as, either be it physical projects or, like was mentioned, more police presence. I'll let you guys generate more ideas, but just thinking, what do you think would be an opportunity to improve? And this one's open response, so it'll show up a little differently and we can read these.
Quick question, is this question that we're answering now, is this also on the website?
It could potentially be on the website. We're asking similar questions in the transportation survey as well. But, if we want, like, either now or later in this process to have like some more directed questions that are outside the survey, we'd definitely be open to it. I will say, right now on the website, there's the sticky notes for people to leave like open responses, and then we've also recently added a mapping exercise on there where if you would like to kind of leave a note but at a specific location, you can categorize that note, so you can say, this is a transportation comment and I'm putting it here at the intersection of, Lathrop Boulevard and one of the cross streets. So I would encourage people to participate that way. We haven't seen much participation on the map, and I can link you guys to it directly if it is on that join the conversation page and you scroll down.
Okay. I was just thinking, I don't have words right now because I'm reaching like my word count limit in my brain for the day, but I think this is a phenomenal question, and the way that it's worded is like very straightforward, that I think when you have brain capacity, you can answer it and give responses that give like a wide enough picture, especially with like only 200 characters. I think often of when these type of things, like what would my parents think about this? Like how would they answer it? Is this like accessible to them? And I think they are great at articulating, if you give them like a short response thing rather than like a press on the map type of thing, because then that's when they call me and it's like, how do you do this thing on the map? And do I have to like drag the thing on the sticky note, or it starts to become a logistics thing and it's headache for them, headache for me. But short answer questions are typically easier, because even if you struggle to just like tap it, you can tap and type and boom, like you can articulate what you have to say. So just It's something to think about and suggestion-wise for, I guess, accessibility of different minds and perspectives. And just to note that I really do like and appreciate that question.
Right. Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate the feedback, because when we establish the questionnaires and how respondents can show their responses is exactly what you said, that there's different levels of understanding or interpretation or know-how, and so just a simple comment response sometimes is the best way for us to achieve the goal of obtaining that information. So we do take that into consideration, so we certainly will continue to do so, as we go through these survey questions.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point too, like having the open house coming up in June, like at the end of this process. I think having some of those more open responses are a real possibility and benefit to, okay, well, now we've gone through everything, is there anything else you want to say, like what are the opportunities here? So yeah, we can look into if it's, I believe a similar question is in the transportation survey, but if there's nothing, comparable, we can look into adding something like that onto the hub website.
Thank you.
I think in considering too, just trying to get more participation.
Yeah.
When I looked at the survey that you guys created earlier, where the age for the responses was 34. Well, that's a little bit lower than I think the average age of Lathrup residents. And because of that, I don't know that they have the familiarity or the comfort with electronically responding to something, and that being the only way to do it. It might be too late in the process, but I mean, pencil and paper does work for 80-year-olds and 70-year-olds instead of punching something on a computer.
Yeah, I will say actually, and I probably, it may have been confusingly written, but we're actually not hearing from people under 34 right now.
Oh,
We're
okay, that's
hearing,
not what I understood that to say.
Yeah, no, and that's, that may be on us the way that we worded it, but to your point, there's also a drop-off after a certain age as well, so kind of working on both of those ends of the spectrum, I think is valuable to consider, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
If you don't mind me asking, what is the drop-off age?
Well, from what we've seen so far, it's usually around in the 65 plus.
Okay.
And that group is like holistic to everybody beyond that, so I'm not sure if there's a specific drop off after 70 or 80 or what it might be, but that's kind of where we're seeing a little dip. But for the most part, though, the population that's responding is older adults.
And do you have any more mentees, or do you have one more, or?
I think we have one more, just kind of wrapping it up with like what are some of the challenges and considerations that the community would think about when we're looking to improve transportation. This is getting at the tip of digging into that real world trade-offs. What are those barriers standing in our way, whether it be funding or zoning, or just maybe physical space constrictions, but we want to hear from you guys, because I feel like I've already learned quite a bit about things that have existed or happened, like the emergency routes, or people inventing their own parking spaces, so that's good to know.
I know we're going a little long this evening, and I thank everybody that's here and that's remained, and everybody that's online and participating. We only have
2 more agenda items after we're all done, so thank you for your patience.
And thank you for making clear that creating a vision for the future of appearance of our, and landscaping of our transportation routes is a part of planning. Planning of the master plan, proper part of the master plan. Not just a checklist for developers.
I have a quick question. This is for anyone who has the answer. Commissioner Hammond, you might, because you kind of went through a lot of who owns what earlier in terms of highway, federal government, this, that, and the other. Sidewalks. I wasn't there for the 10-minute discussion on sidewalks earlier.
Yeah, so sidewalks are the responsibility of the property owner
Okay,
that has the property adjacent to the sidewalk.
okay. And it's like that residentially, commercially,
Yes.
everywhere?
Yep.
Okay.
But also that the sidewalks are within the right of way. They're not typically on private property, right? So,
True.
so it's the property of the city in most instances, but the maintenance
Falls on the property
falls on the
owner.
property owner.
That's right.
And according to the way they paved them, the corner square is the city's responsibility, I gather. And
If it's in the right of way, right? If
yes,
it's right of
I
way.
mean, the corner where the 2 sidewalks intersect, that corner square is apparently the city's responsibility. And
Where
sometimes
are
it's-
you basing that on? I'm not sure that's true.
Well, when they came around and did all of that, they said the corner is our responsibility.
Somebody from the city told you that when they were doing the survey of the
Yeah.
sidewalks?
Well, I think it may have to do with the fact that you have to install the accessibility ramps.
The ramp, yeah, the
On
ramp and the bumps.
On
Yeah.
that corner.
That's the interface with the sidewalk system in the street.
But you're talking about the
City.
part that actually connects one street to it, the sidewalk on one street to the sidewalk on another street,
Yeah.
which is before those accessibility.
But that's a small point, it's not for us.
Yeah, I was just asking because I was curious. Now I wish I was able to make it for that conversation, but I was curious about what can be said in whether that's like transportation master plan or if this goes down to like what Attorney Baker was saying on it being more of like an ordinance issue and we bring that up a different time, just in terms of say the results of the survey is that, we want more continuous and like smooth sidewalks so that it's more accessible for people to walk, or people to roll, or whether they have like a walker or a wheelchair or whatever that looks like, that accessibility thing. Is that something how do we go about that, like implementing it in that way? Is that something that comes up now in the conversation, or is that something I pocket for later to bring up in just a commission meeting without you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think if there is an issue, if you're walking down the street and you run into a slab that's in disrepair, then it's an ordinance conversation and violation and needs to be addressed in that manner.
Okay. But then overall, just expansion of sidewalks for accessibility purposes and easier transport, that would be a master plan type of thing.
That could be a goal and objective to complete, because there are still many intersections that are not ADA compliant. So that could be an objective of the master plan, is to see a completion of those ADA accessibility sidewalks.
Okay.
It could also be, I think Dennis brought it up during the study session, maybe the city make it that every 10 years they do a sidewalk improvement program versus, The one that just took place a few years ago was the first one that had been done in 15+ years. So instead of pushing it off until a very large project has to be undertaken, if we did it more frequently, if it was evaluated and they had these campaigns, then that might help, eliminate some of the.
That would be a popular measure, because one of the complaints which one of the most conservative people in the community brought to me about sidewalks is, do we have to do it all at once? Well, when you stretch it out for 15 years, you got a big catch-up. I had 13 squares in my property.
And part of it from a legal standpoint is once the city's really put on notice of it, then it needs to be addressed. And the point that was brought up and is a couple of times, that responsibility falls on the adjacent property owner. So oftentimes it's information that they don't want to hear. I think Jason said, it's like, no, that half-inch deviation's fine on my property. You don't have to replace that sidewalk square. But I think the more that the city engages in that practice, the fewer massive undertakings that we'll have to do, like 13 squares. I mean, those should be good for many years. But we kind of, as long as we stay on top of that. But in large part, like what's on the screen now, it's been a funding issue. The city doesn't have the funds to expend that. Prior ballot measures that look to seek bond funds to address those.
Could be done by volunteers too.
But
Well,
that was part of the reason for the vote to raise the cap on the Headley override, is to help with the maintenance, the city maintenance fund that can't stretch and, is stretched and can't maintain everything. So that was part of the reason that was taken to a vote. It was the same thing when the infrastructure committee that we sat on in 2017, and we passed the legislation for the roads, the ditches, the culverts, and the sidewalks, and the water and sewer repairs, because it had been 15 years since anything had been to that magnitude, I should say, had been maintained. And it just sounds like, as you're saying, a regular maintenance or a regular routine of maintenance, a schedule, once you're able to put that in place, then it won't be as impactful when it comes to coming up with the funding, that kind of thing. So all those beautiful things being said, what is applicable to remember and recommend for the master plan? Is it
Build in a routine maintenance schedule.
Okay, and then also, could we add to that like ADA compliance?
Yeah, like the completion of the
Completion
ADA
of-
access points.
Yeah.
Completion of the sidewalk system, because there are some places where
It
it ends at a corner, and then you go down into a ditch and walk up the other side to
exactly.
get to the next sidewalk.
Yes, I like your wording as well, like completion of the sidewalk system. So I'd want to keep those things in mind. I was just trying to figure out how to say it for the master plan's sake, but I think those would be like the two things that I would love to see, and I think other people would as well, just because I go to school in Ann Arbor and it's a very walkable place. So I came back and I'm like, 15 minutes walk is nothing, except when you have to go down in that ditch and then find the rest of the sidewalk and continue this way and do all those different things. If it was a more continuous and complete system, I think it would be easier for people to walk and use the hawk signals that we installed and just easily walk throughout Lathrup Village.
I just want to say, did you look at the 2021 master plan pages 81, 82, 83, talking about the complete streets? There's a nice map there that you can look at if you did want to think this over more. Just on our website, lathrupvillage.org, starting at 82, transportation and complete streets, mentioning the village center, like you had said, Mr. Tara. Village center, the context of the surrounding area influences the function of the roadway. Roads in this area will feature elements that are more suitable for a denser, walkable urban setting, such as the following: parallel on-street parking, bike lanes routed into the village center, travel speeds of 35 miles an hour or less, buildings directly abutting the right-of-way, wider sidewalks serving pedestrian activities, including outdoor dining, and so much more. So much of what we were saying today is in the 2021 that we're just reviewing, but there is that nice complete streets and neighborhood map there that is color-coded. And I know sometimes, because my father was colorblind, it's hard for people to read, but it is color-coded if you can make that out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that.
I would like to make one other point, if I may. We've transitioned from housing to transportation, and there's one crossover point. I'd like to remind people that originally, apparently, there was a requirement that every house have 2 fireplaces. Now, that was clearly to market this community as a luxury community, right? But it was an odd requirement. But anyway, I'm glad. I think it's nice my house has 2 fireplaces. But anyway, not really germane to today's issues. But one thing that is young adults, and though I'm 86, I have a lot of contact with young adults. They don't want to drive if they don't have to. They don't want to own a car if they don't have to. But if they do own a car, if they don't already have an electric vehicle, they want to have one. It is very difficult for a renter to have an electric vehicle because there's no place to charge. All we should require, if we want to be a community that's attractive to the younger generation, all new housing should have, let's stretch a little bit, a level 2 charging port. It should have the ability to charge. So look at those long commutes on your report. Most of those commutes are really long, and having an electric vehicle would make a huge difference. Think of this week's gas prices. In our family, we're totally insulated from that because we get nearly all of our driving miles off the roof. But if we could require that all new housing has a charging port, and yes, you can kind of call it a drip charge or something like that for 110, but really it should be a 240 volt charging system. That makes it a good house for somebody who's got a 20-mile commute, 30-mile commute, 40-mile commute. All of those are on your chart. A huge financial difference. And a good pollution difference, too, in the right way.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? And
Advance, is it done?
Yeah, I think with that, that was really all we had. And just, again, we would like to emphasize, take the transportation survey if you have not had a chance to. That is, if you go to the city website, on the front page of the city website, there's a link to the master plan hub website. And if you go there and click join the conversation, you'll see all the surveys. The surveys do go into a little more depth than we can here.
Can you put it up
Yeah,
right quick?
yeah. Let me see if I can,
Just the city's website.
yeah, let's, City of Lathrup Village, oops, here we go. So yeah, if you go to the front page here, it's this master plan update button. And if you click that, it's gonna go to the hub website for the master plan. This is notification from our hub. And then you go to join the conversation. It's kind of up top, and here's all of our mini surveys so far, and that'll take you directly to the survey where you can respond, and that is asking more questions. There's open response on there, there's multiple choice, there's a variety of ways to respond, and you can do it at your own convenience, really. So.
Well, thank you, Hannah and Eric. We'd like to thank Giffords Webster, as usual. Very enlightening and informative, and we look forward to the study session, and I will be there for the next one. And with that, I think that concludes the presentation for the master plan update. There's no action item with that, correct? Okay. We will move the meeting forward to agenda item number 9, general communication. Does anyone have any general communication? Any letters they received?
Joe, I'm gonna go real quick through the site development report, just real fast.
Okay.
And so, across the street at Jaybirds, we're waiting for engineering documents to finalize its building permit. Holbrook Auto Parts, they've had their wall sign installed, and also the monument sign has been refaced. They're open for business. Middle Eats has gotten their permit. They're preparing to do expansion of their dining hall. The project at 27700 Southfield Road, our historic school site, they're still waiting on MSHDA's decision on funding. They were awarded a 12-month extension to their site plan approval during City Council's February 23rd meeting. At 28919 Southfield Road, this was the parking, the project that needed you guys approved contingent on a variance for parking, off-street parking. They were awarded it at the Zoning Board of Appeals. So they are working right now to get their engineering documents finalized and provided to us. So hopefully soon they will begin construction. And that's all I got for you guys tonight.
Awesome. Thank you. Agenda item number 10, commissioner comments. I think we've done a really good job of making our thoughts known during the session. But does anyone have any comments?
No.
I have to at least ask. Okay, yes, I do have a comment, but I'll make it really quick. It's just to Commissioner Nombour's point about like the requiring new houses to have like that battery charging port thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the charging port for, I understand where you're coming from. I think that would make houses more marketable, but I don't think there would be new house development in Lathrup Village at all. And then also, I think that would be up to the people's choice, because even though electricity is progressive, some people just don't subscribe to that. And even though gas prices are crazy, people would still opt to pay for their gas car, whatever sentiments they hold for that. So I guess just leaving it in the decisions of the individual homeowners. But I think the main thing is just we don't have much development of new housing, especially having a majority of like historical homes. That's my only comment.
I'll respond to that at another time.
Yes. Okay. Duly noted. And with that, may I have a motion to adjourn? Motion. To adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is ended. Yes.
Yeah, I'm
Thank you
sorry
very
if we
much.